Chapter 4984. Father. When the three Song brothers saw him, they bowed to him and greeted him. They glanced at their sister and Cloud 7, who was beside them. Song Lingbo walked in with his hands behind his back. Speaking of which, I haven't been outside for a long time. I'll go with you this time and bring them along. It's good to let them see more. The three Song brothers looked at each other and agreed. Okay, let's go together. But won't Mother be the only one left in the residence? Yes, with your mother looking after the residence, you don't have to worry about anything in the residence. Even if she encounters something she can't solve, she will discuss it with the elders in the residence. Song Lingbo looked at Hao and the other two and smiled. You guys go back with me? And pack up. Don't leave today. We'll leave tomorrow morning. Yes, thank you very much, Uncle Song. Hao and the rest bowed to him. Let's go. I'll bring you back to pack up and see what you need to bring. Me. Smiled and waved at Hao and Mu Chun. She brought the three of them back to pack up first. In the courtyard, Song Lingbo instructed his three sons to prepare well and pick some people from the residence to form a team to accompany them. On the other side, Mir, who was bringing the three of them back to the courtyard, said, This time, we'll be going out with my father and brother. We don't have to worry about not having anything to eat. We don't have to bring too much dry food. We can just get whatever we want to eat on the way. The three of them nodded without any objections. Hao then said, Sister Mir, how long will we be going out this time? I'm a little worried that Mother won't be able to see us when we go out. Hearing this, Mir smiled and said, You don't have to worry about that. I'll go tell my mother later and tell her that a friend might be visiting. If she comes, let her stay in the residence and properly entertain her while she waits for us to return. Can we also leave a message for her? Hao asked. Of course. You can also leave a message for her. Go back to your room and write what you want to say. Once you're done, I'll put it all together and give it to my mother. When your mother comes, let her give it to her. How about that? Mir asked. Okay. The eyes of the three lit up, and they immediately agreed. All right, then you guys go ahead and write your letters. I'll go get some spirit rice. I'll come back later to get your letters. Then I'll go see my mother. Song Mir said. She waved at them and turned to leave. The three of them got someone to prepare a brush and ink. After writing a letter in the room, they waited for me, to return before handing the finished letter to her. Song Mi, took the letter and went to her mother's courtyard. As soon as she entered, she saw that her father was also there. She jogged over and called out with a smile, Father, Mother, you're already a big girl, yet you're still jumping around like this. Madame Song shook her head and looked at her dotingly and helplessly. Mother, I'm going out with father and brother tomorrow. Don't miss me too much. Song Mir giggled, holding her hand and rubbing her head on her shoulder. Chapter 4985. Mother, don't worry. I'm doing fine outside. No one dares to bully me. She said with a smile and raised her chin proudly. She was someone with a master. Her master was the Empress and the Phoenix Master. Who would dare bully her? However, she couldn't say this to her parents right now. Don't worry. She'll be fine if she comes with us. But I'm worried about you at home. Song Lingbo frowned. He looked at her and said, We will probably be gone for about a month. If there is anything that you can't solve at home, remember to discuss it with the elders in the clan. The few of us, father and son, will not be at home. If anyone sends an invitation, don't accept it and don't attend any banquets. Okay, I know. Madame Song smiled. Mother, I reckon that after we leave, a friend will come over. When the time comes, please help me greet her and let her stay in the mansion until we return. Mir hurriedly said, Your friend? Is it a man or a woman? Madame Song asked in surprise. Song Mir smiled and said, It's a woman. This friend of mine is a very important person. Mother, when the time comes, you must tell your subordinates to treat her well. Seeing her daughter so concerned, she shook her head and smiled. How should I address your friend? You have to tell Mother clearly, right? So we don't get the wrong person. How should I address her? Song Mir's mind turned. She remembered that her mistress often referred to herself as Madame Xinyuan outside. So she said to her mother, My friend's husband's surname is Xinyuan. She's often referred to as Madame Xinyuan. Madame Xinyuan? Okay, Mother will remember it. I'll tell the gatekeeper later. She nodded and made a mental note. And this is the letter I left for Madame Chignon. Mother, remember to hand it to her personally. Mir took out the letter written by Hao and the others and handed it to her. Chatted with her parents in a room for a while, then got up and went back to prepare for the journey tomorrow. Early the next morning, a group of people set off from the Song residence. This time, because Song Lingbo's 3 sons were going with them, they picked 12 people from the residence to form a group. To them, 12 people were enough. Because there were more of them, these 12 people would protect the 3 children. As for the Song father and son, they were very confident in their own strength. After leaving the city, the group flew on their weapons and headed to their destination. After half a day of flying, they arrived at the forest in the afternoon. Because they were looking for ingredients, they naturally didn't go to the outer regions. After all, they could only find the things they were looking for in the deeper parts of the forest. They flew directly to the edge of the inner circle of the forest before heading into the forest. Mir said to Hao and the others, "Look, this forest is also divided, and it's very obvious that this red forest belongs to the inner circle." Hao and the other 2 looked down. Indeed, there was a conspicuous red forest in the forest below. It formed a large circle like a border, clearly distinguishing between the 2. Chapter 4986. Sit tight. Hao and the other 2 heard the sound, and at the same time, they held tightly onto the aircraft they were sitting on. They only felt the aircraft speed up as it flew down. Gusts of fierce wind blew in their faces, and they couldn't even open their eyes. Behind them came the screeching of the giant birds and the flapping of their wings. They felt their vision darken, and at the same time, the air became colder. Looking ahead, it turned out that the aircraft had passed through the cover of the towering trees and landed on the ground in the middle of the forest. Screech! They heard a sound and turned to see that it was a giant bird that was unwilling to let its prey escape. It folded its wings and swooped straight down. Its sharp red beak with hooks screeched, and its 2 sharp claws grabbed at Muchun. Perhaps this giant bird thought that this human child was small and did not have much lethality. As long as it caught him, it would be easier for it to take the prey away for a meal. Watch out! Not only Song Lingbo and his 2 sons, but even the 12 Song family members who were traveling with him cried out in alarm at the same time. When they saw the giant bird grabbing at the child, they instinctively wanted to cut it down with the swords in their hands, but they were worried that they would hurt the child, so they quickly gathered their chi and rushed forward. Unexpectedly, when they saw the next scene, everyone was immediately stunned. Muchun did not even frown when he saw the giant bird's eagle-like claws coming at him. To be honest, although he was young, the number of beasts he had killed was uncountable, not to mention a giant bird like this. Originally, if this giant bird was like the other giant birds and did not dare to come down, perhaps this matter would be over. He was just a child, so naturally he would not chase after that group of giant birds called spirit-devouring birds to pluck their feathers and kill them. However, this one felt that he was a person who did not even have the strength to trust a chicken and wanted to catch him as food. Since this was the case, he naturally could not stand still and let it do as it pleased. What's more, he had followed the Song family into the forest to gain experience and broaden his horizons. However, the Song family thought that he was just a child and didn't have the ability to protect himself. Under such circumstances, he felt that it was necessary to show off his skills. As a result, when the giant bird was about to grab him, he suddenly squatted down and pulled out the dagger from his boot. Then, he quickly jumped up and grabbed the giant bird's feathers with one hand. Then, he flipped over and sat on its back. Raising the dagger in his hand, he directly cut off the spirit-devouring bird's head. Blood splashed out from the air and splattered all over the ground. A sharp and mournful cry rang out, hurried and panic-stricken. The moment the sound rang out, the spirit-devouring bird's head was chopped off and fell to the ground. The giant bird that was about to flap its wings and fly away also plummeted down because of this sudden change. Bang! The body of the bird, which was the size of an adult, fell heavily on the ground and twitched a few times. In the end, its entire body stiffened and stopped breathing. The father and sons of the Song family and the 12 Song family elite guards were all dumbfounded. They stared at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape and could not recover for a long time. This is too amazing, isn't it? Isn't that child's skills a little too good? And his reaction, isn't it too fast? Chapter 49:87. Everyone's shocked gazes shifted away from the child, who had a calm expression and didn't even frown, and landed on the dagger in his hand. This dagger is definitely a good dagger. Compared to their astonishment and shock, and you appeared to be used to it. They were not surprised at all. They knew Mu-chun. It would be strange if he couldn't even deal with such a giant bird. Stepped forward and patted her 3 brothers on the shoulder. She smiled proudly and said, "Eldest brother, second brother, third brother, how is it? I didn't lie to you, right? The 3 of them have the ability to protect themselves, so you don't have to worry about them. They are indeed powerful." The 3 of them nodded in unison. After glancing at me, they looked at Mu-chun, who was wiping the dagger, and said, "I really didn't expect his adaptability and fighting ability to be so strong." As they spoke, they couldn't help but look at the 2 people on the side. Their eyes flashed. The 3 of them were all Emperor Qing's disciples. This Yin Yuan was already so powerful, so Yin Shun and Yin Qi should not be too far off. Unexpectedly, they were not joking when they said they had the ability to protect themselves. At this time, Song Lingbo stepped forward and said to Mu-chun, "This is a spirit eater bird. It occupies the sky above this forest as its territory with its speed and tough fur. It specializes in attacking cultivators, eating their spiritual power and flesh to transform into its own strength." As he spoke, he squatted down beside the spirit eater bird. He reached out and pressed on its body. He pointed to a spot and said, "This is an old bird. It has already formed a golden core here." Mu-chun looked on from the side and saw that he had unknowingly held a sharp knife in his hand. He accurately pierced the spirit eater bird's body. After a while, he took out a red round bead the size of a thumb. "Keep it. This is good stuff." Song Lingbo handed the red bead to Mu-chun. Mu-chun glanced at him before reaching out to take it. "Uncle Song, what's the use of this bead?" Song Lingbo smiled and said, "Spirit-devouring birds that have lived for 100 years are considered old birds, and among 100 old birds, only a few can form a golden core. These golden cores are where the spirit-devouring birds store their energy and spiritual power. They can be used for cultivation, and they can also be swallowed, which is very helpful in increasing one's cultivation." Hearing this, Mu-chun nodded his head as if he understood. He walked to the front of Yu and handed that red bead to her, and said, "You can play with it, but don't eat it. It's too dirty." "Thank you, second senior brother," Yu said with a smile, then took that red bead and played with it. When the people of the Song family saw that he gave the rare golden elixir to Yunqi, they couldn't help but smile. She thought to herself that their relationship was really good. "All right, let's go ahead and take a look. There are countless treasures in this forest, but there are also unimaginable dangers. Therefore, it's best to be careful. Safety first." Song Lingbo looked at everyone as he spoke, especially the 3 children and his daughter. "Mir?" "Yes, we know." Everyone responded and went forward together. Chapter 49:88. Let's rest here for a while. Let's see if there are any ingredients nearby, and take some to cook. Song Lingbo looked at the place and was about to stop and rest. "Okay. Then you guys rest. We'll go look around." Song Yihong called his 2 brothers and brought 2 or 3 elite guards to look around. Find a place to sit down and rest. If you're thirsty, drink some water. Don't run around. Song Mi was said to Hao and the others. Then she came to her father's side and asked with a smile, "Dad, I heard that there's a black canopy Ganoderma in this forest. Is it true?" Song Lingbo, who sat down under the tree, glanced at her. "I haven't seen it before, but I heard that cultivators found it here. Why do you ask?" "I heard that this black canopy Ganoderma can run away with spiritual wisdom, so I'm curious. What does it look like? Does it taste good?" She held her chin and thought about the appearance of an ordinary Ganoderma and the black canopy Ganoderma. It was said that it was a good thing with many effects. Unfortunately, she had never seen it in her life. Song Lingbo didn't answer her. Instead, he glanced at the three children sitting in a circle. A complicated look flashed through his eyes. He asked, "Are the three of them all that skilled?" The sudden change of topic startled Songmi. She followed his gaze and saw how and the others talking about something. Seeing this, she laughed. "That's right. The three of them are very skilled. Among them, Yinshen's skill is the most outstanding. However, the other two are also not bad. Dad, don't underestimate them." "Of course I won't. After all, they're master." He paused and didn't continue. On the other side, how and the others were sitting together and talking. "This place is also a rare training ground. We haven't fought much recently, so we can play to our heart's content here. How about this? Let's have a competition to see who can hunt the most fierce beast cores when we leave." How? Looked at his younger siblings and glanced at Song Lingbo. "Unless it's a last resort, don't use your contracted beasts." "Yes, we know." Mu Chun and Mu Yu nodded. "Also although you're studying medicine, but your body technique and fighting strength also can't be rusty. This time you're not allowed to use medicine to deal with ferocious beasts, and use your own strength to kill ferocious beasts as much as possible." Looked at you, and said. It was a good thing that his sister liked medicine, but he was also worried that if she relied too much on medicine, her combat ability would not be able to keep up if she really had to fight with others in the future. Yes, Cloud 7 knows," she replied with a smile. Not long after, Song Yihong and the others came back. Some of them picked up some branches, some caught a few wild animals, and some picked some mushrooms. Big brother, second brother, third brother are back. Songmi smiled and went forward to take the things they brought back. When she saw that there were many mushrooms, she said, "There are so many mushrooms. Maybe it rained not long ago, so there are a lot of mushrooms growing in that area." Chapter 4989. We'll do as you say. Since we're outside, there's no need be too delicate. The main thing is to let everyone eat their fill. Look around to see if there are any wild herbs and the like. Pick some back to cook the soup." As Song Lingbo spoke, he sat cross-legged under the tree and closed his eyes to rest. Since his sons were going to handle it, he naturally did not need to do anything. He only needed to wait. "We'll help too." How and the other two walked over and said. Seeing this, said, "Then come with me to pick some wild herbs. We'll pick more mushrooms in case there's not enough to eat." "I'll go with you." As Song Yiming spoke, he put down the things and accompanied them to the vicinity. The others began to methodically carry out their tasks. Some handled the game, some took out pots and bowls, and some prepared to light a fire. A few days later, when How and the others were training in the forest with the Song family, Fengjiu arrived in the city. After asking for the location of the Song family, she came to the front door of the Song family. Looking at the door in front of her, she walked up and knocked on the door. The door opened, and a middle-aged man looked at the woman in green outside the door. After carefully sizing her up, he asked, "May I ask if you are Madame Xinyuan?" Before he left, Miss Me had told him that a friend of hers would be visiting. It was a woman in green, and her age and appearance were as described. There was no doubt that it was the person in front of him. Hearing the gatekeeper's words, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. She originally wanted to ask, but she did not expect the gatekeeper to call her by her name first. Thus, she said, "Yes, I'm here to see me. Esteemed guest, please enter the residence." The middle-aged man did not dare to delay and hurriedly opened the door to invite her in. He said, "Miss Me said before she left that Madame Xinyuan is an esteemed guest of the Song family and cannot be neglected." As he invited her into the residence, he raised his hand to call for another person to stand guard at the door and personally led her to the front hall. As he walked, he slowed down by half a step and said, "Madame Xinyuan, please take a seat in the hall. I'll invite you over later." After Fengjiu sat down, a maidservant served tea and snacks and then retreated outside to wait. Sitting alone in the hall, Fengjiu did not feel restrained. Instead, he took a sip of tea and tasted a piece of dessert. Not long after, a beautiful woman slowly walked over. She looked at the beautiful woman and saw that her brows were similar to Song Mi's. The only difference was that this beautiful woman had a different face from Songmi. The beauty of this beautiful woman was not glamorous, delicate, or delicate. Instead, it was a kind of graceful and luxurious beauty. It was not breathtaking, but the more one looked at her, the more one felt that she was beautiful. Madame Xinyuan. Madame Song slowly walked in alone, with a polite smile on her face. She was a little surprised by Madame Xuanyuan's young age, as well as her calm and composed aura. Madame Song nodded slightly at her, her gentle voice carrying a smile like a spring breeze. I am the madam of the Song family, and also me, Er's mother. I've heard me mention Madame Xinyuan, but I didn't expect Madame Xinyuan to be so young. As she spoke, she walked to the main seat and sat down. Her gentle gaze fell with admiration on the green figure sitting at the bottom left. Chapter 4990. Hearing this, Madame Song couldn't help but smile. Her brows were full of indulgence and helplessness. This child, has made me worry a lot. She didn't even send a letter back when she left. I've been so worried at home. Fortunately, this child was able to make friends with someone like Madame Xinyuan. She told me that Madame Xinyuan took good care of her when she was outside. This time, she must stay at home for a few more days so that we can properly host her. Actually, she took good care of me when we were outside. Her culinary skills are especially outstanding. Feng Jiu said with a smile. Our family is a family of culinary cultivators. Our children's culinary skills are quite good. When we came back some time ago, she even brought 3 friends with her. She said that she made friends outside. The 3 of them stayed here for a few days and have gained quite a bit of weight. Madame Song thought of the 3 children. Yunqi. She was small and chubby and looked very likable. The smile on her face couldn't help but deepen. Hearing this, Feng Jiu's eyes flashed. It's Yin Shun and the others, isn't it? We came here together, but I had some matters to attend to and had to leave first. I made an appointment with them to pick them up when I was done. Madame Xinyuan knows them too. Madame Song said in surprise. Mir didn't tell me. However, she probably didn't expect Madame Xinyuan to finish her task so quickly. Just a few days ago, Yunqi, and the others went out with Er's father and 3 brothers to see if there are any new ingredients in the forest. This trip will probably take about a month. As she spoke, she took out a thick letter and handed it to Madame Song. Mir asked me to give this to you. Madame Xinyuan, please stay in the manor for this period of time. You can keep me company too. Feng Jiu took the letter she handed over. After opening it, he realized that it wasn't written by Mir, but by the 3 children. It was mainly about what had happened in the Song family these past few days. They also said that they wanted to go out and gain experience. They asked her to wait for them at the Song family and not leave without them. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled. She folded the letter and put it into the space. Then she looked at Madame Song and smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you all this time. How could that be? Madame Song smiled and said, When I heard from me that you would be coming over, I had someone prepare a courtyard for you. Let me accompany you to take a look. I'll show you around the mansion. The flowers in my mansion's garden have been blooming well recently. You can go and admire them. Feng Jiu responded with a smile and followed her out of the hall. They walked to the backyard and familiarized themselves with the Song family's place. After walking around the Song family's residence, they went to the guest courtyard. In the end, Feng Jiu didn't choose to stay in the courtyard prepared by Madame Song. Instead, she stayed in Er's courtyard. On this day, Madame Song accompanied her until the evening before she left. After Madame Song left, she asked the servants to prepare a bath for her. After taking a bath, she changed into a new set of clothes and entered the space. Since the 3 children had gone out to gain experience, she would wait here for them to come back. She could take advantage of this period of free time to see if there were any medicinal pills that needed to be refined. Chapter 4991. It wasn't until the end of the morning that the door opened and the green figure walked out. Madame Xinyuan, I thought that it would be too quiet for you to eat alone. Since I'm alone as well, I had the servants bring the breakfast over and place it in your courtyard. Let's eat together. She smiled and looked at Feng Jiu, who was still a little sleepy. She smiled and said, If you feel bored in the manor, I'll have someone bring you around the city later. All right, Feng responded. It wasn't clear whether he was responding to the first part or the second part. However, after she finished speaking, she still walked over and sat down at the table. These are all normal breakfast dishes. I just don't know if you'll be used to them, Madame Song said, and motioned for a servant to scoop a bowl of porridge for her. I'll be fine. Feng smiled and tried the dishes one by one. After a while, she was full after eating a bowl of porridge and quite a few dishes. After finishing his meal, he chatted with Madame Song for a while longer before leading a servant of the Song clan out of the estate to wander around the city. Compared to Feng leisurely pace, the Song family, including Hao and the others, were not as relaxed as they were in the forest. It wasn't because they were gradually entering deeper into the forest. Other than ferocious beasts, there were also many rare ingredients. At this moment, the Song family's father and son were competing in speed with the golden monkeys. Between the branches, little golden monkeys were jumping up and down, plucking the fist-sized red fruits on the branches. Squeaking sounds came from their mouths from time to time. After plucking the fruits, the monkeys didn't leave. Instead, they broke off branches and threw them at the Song family's people. Then, they screamed and quickly retreated. There are too many of these monkeys. Let's avoid them, Song Lingbo said. When he saw that there weren't many fruits left after the monkeys plucked them, he was so angry that he flipped his palm and spat out a flame. It transformed into a knife and slashed at the monkeys. Hiss! The monkeys opened their mouths and hissed, revealing their teeth as if they were demonstrating. However, what made the Song family feel strange was that these monkeys did not dare to approach the three children. They did not even dare to throw things at the three children. Maybe there will be more sour fruits in front. When the time comes, we can pick some and go back to make fruit sauce. Most of the sour fruits here have been picked by Monkey. There aren't many left, Song Yiming said as he gestured for everyone to leave. The group of people continued to walk inside. 12 elite guards of the Song clan were protecting them. Suddenly, a roar was heard and a ferocious silhouette dashed out. Roar! Be careful! The beast roared. Song Lingbo shouted, and everyone quickly scattered in all directions to avoid the thing that suddenly rushed out. When he took a closer look, his eyes lit up. He raised his hand and gestured for everyone to step back. This is an adult red ground tiger. You guys step back and leave this to me. Seeing he was about to make a move, however, Mu Chun as well as you all looked towards him. Along the way, they had seen him deal with very powerful ferocious beasts, and most of them were killed in one move. Then what about this one? Chapter 4992. Mir protected the three of them as they retreated. Seeing the three of them staring straight at her father, she smiled and said, "My father's strength is also very strong. His saber techniques are something that even my brothers and the other two cannot compare to." As she spoke, Hao and the others saw Song Lingbo, who was facing the red ground tiger, slashing with a saber in his hand. The saber in his hand was about 3 fingers wide and glowed with a sharp black light. The saber aura shot out as he slashed with the saber, heading straight for the red ground tiger's fatal spot. The red ground tiger's body was strong and powerful. It was also a peak-level ferocious beast. Its combat strength was also extraordinary. At this moment, it was fighting one-on-one. Very quickly, the smell of blood filled the air. Roar! Swish, swish! The saber aura and the roar of the red ground tiger resounded from time to time. Everyone retreated to look. The surrounding trees in front of them were either broken by the red ground tiger or the saber aura. With a cracking sound, the trees fell down in a disorderly manner, half covering the figures of the man and beast. Bang! After about half an instant's time, a loud sound was heard and the front returned to normal. Everyone saw Song Lingbo walking out with a saber in one hand and the dead red ground tiger in the other. The red ground tiger that weighed several hundred pounds was easily dragged in front of everyone. Mir, how about I peel off the skin of this red ground tiger and make it into a blanket for you? Song Lingbo asked with a smile, looking at his youngest daughter. No need, no need. I don't need it now. Father, give it to my brothers. Song Mi quickly waved her hand and said, forget it if you don't want it. Then I'll peel it off and give it to your mother. Song Lingbo glanced at his three sons and said, "If you want to hunt it, it's just a red ground tiger. It's not like you can't hunt it." The three Song brothers heard their father's obviously biased words and couldn't help but twitch the corner of their mouth. They were used to it. Since they were young, they had to fight for whatever they wanted. Whatever their sister wanted, their father would get it for her. This was the difference between sons and daughters. Don't just stand there. We'll be active in this area these 2 days. You could go around and take a look. As Song Lingbo spoke, he looked at Hao and the other two and said, "You guys come along too. Don't go too far and be careful." These days, he had a whole new level of respect for these three children. Although these three children were young, they were not easy to deal with. With their skills, it was not a problem for them to deal with ferocious beasts. Back in the days, when his children were their age, they were still shouting behind him. Indeed, comparisons were odious. Who were these three children's parents? How could he be so outstanding at such a young age? "Father, I'll bring them around to take a look. I won't be following them," Songmi said with a smile. She waved her hand at them and quickly led Hao and the others to a place nearby. "The two of you, follow them and protect them. Don't let anything happen to them," Song Lingbo said to the two elite guards. "Yes." The two elite guards responded. Although they felt that they might not need their protection, they still quickly followed. "Father, then we'll also go and take a look nearby." As the three Song brothers spoke, they each led one person and left. Chapter 4993. Songmi brought Hao and the other two to look around but didn't see any other beasts. "Why don't we look around to see if there are any ingredients? There shouldn't be any beasts around here." Hao looked around and said, "Sister Mi, you don't have to worry about us. We can protect ourselves. You go and pick the ingredients. The three of us want to walk a little further." But Songmi somewhat disagreed. After all, this place was full of hidden dangers. Who knew what they would suddenly encounter? "Sister Mi, don't worry. We will protect ourselves." You said with a smile. "We came out to test how much our skills have improved. We can't always be protected by you." Muchen also spoke up. Seeing this, Mi glanced at the three of them and said, "All right then, but you have to be careful. If you encounter any beasts you can't handle, you must run back first. Safety first." "Okay." The three responded and looked at each other with a smile in their eyes. "We will follow you," the two guards said to Hao and the other two. "Master asked us to protect you." Hao and the other two looked at the two guards and nodded. After walking for a while, Hao asked Mu Chun and Mu Yu, "Are we going together or separately?" Mu Chun and Mu Yu looked at each other and thought for a while before saying, "Let's go together. Let's see if there are any beasts." "Okay." Hao nodded and continued to move forward. In fact, with their current skills and strength, even if they went separately, he would be more at ease. Another thing was that Yu had a strong contract beast. Naturally, he didn't have to worry about her. "Do you hear something?" Mu Chin stopped and looked at a certain place in the forest. Hearing this, Hao and Yu also stopped their footsteps and listened attentively. Faintly, there was a small sound coming from the lush forest. "It seems to be the sound of monkeys," Yu said and looked at them. Could it be that group of golden silk spirit monkeys from before? "Let's go take a look," Hao said as he led them towards the source of the voice. The two elite guards following behind heard their words and immediately stepped forward to stop them. They said to Hao, "Young Master Chun, the golden silk spirit monkey's temperament is not gentle. On the contrary, they like to fight and live in groups. It would be inappropriate for us to search for them." Hearing this, Hao said there were about 30 to 50 monkeys from before. Even if it was their nest, there would only be about 50 to 60 of them. Although these golden silk spirit monkeys are pack animals, there won't be more than 100 of them. They are warlike, so we can use them to practice our skills. But they still wanted to say something, but they saw that the three people had already walked past them. They could only brace themselves and follow. In the lush forest, the branches and leaves of the towering trees formed a natural umbrella. Even though it was noon, only a little bit of sunlight shone through the layers of lush leaves. There was a damp smell in the air, and there was a faint smell of rotting leaves mixed with the smell of soil that spread with the breeze. Chapter 4994. After how Trio approached, they didn't directly reveal themselves, rather using the trees as half cover. They sized up the scene in front of them. That big tree was very lush. Its branches and leaves bloomed to form a big umbrella. Above the tree body, there were even vines growing and winding around. Some monkeys were holding those vines and swinging back and forth between the trees, issuing squeaking sound. There should be less than 70 monkeys. Mu-chun roughly counted those monkeys. It was indeed a group of monkeys, but also not too many. The bigger monkey, sitting on the top, actually had a monkey smoothing its fur. Yu curiously looked at that big monkey sitting on top of the tree with two smaller and skinnier monkeys squatting beside it. Howard looked, then said in a suppressed voice, "That one should be the Monkey King. Like this kind of group, generally there will be one leader." Oh, Yu blinker eyes. Looking at that Monkey King holding a fruit and wiping it on its body, it again put it into its mouth to eat. Then looking left and right, it suddenly stared towards them, then quickly jumped up. Opening its mouth, it revealed its teeth and hissed. Along with that half-bitten fruit in its hand, it also threw it towards them. "Ah, we were discovered!" Yu shouted and jumped out at the same time. How? And Mu-chun also jumped out, and separately stood beside Yu. Glancing at the two elite guards behind them who also wanted to come out, Howard said, "You two don't come out. We three are enough here." This monkey's reaction is extremely fast. "I'm afraid you three are not its opponent," one of the elite guards said, and somewhat worriedly looked at them. Although their skill was indeed very good, but them 3 and 6 hands dealing with that group of monkeys, I'm afraid they won't be able to cope. "It doesn't matter. If we can't beat them, then you can come out and help us," Yu said with a beaming smile. Her hand was already holding a dagger. Staring at that monkey pulling the vine and swinging towards them, her small figure jumped forward. She didn't evade, but instead pounced forward. Seeing this scene, those two elite guards only felt their breath caught in their throat, and their heart also followed suit. In the next moment, the other two also rushed forward. Their agility was not inferior to that of the golden monkeys. Looking at the swift and fierce attacks of their weapons, the two of them took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. It seemed like they were worried for nothing. The 3 of them should be enough to deal with this group of monkeys. Thus, they retreated until they didn't step forward. They watched from behind a tree, thinking that it wouldn't be too late for them to make a move if they really needed to. The 3 of them rushed forward and also used the vines to avoid the monkey's attack or to leap onto the tree. They chose to fight this group of golden-haired monkeys because they wanted to increase their reaction speed in a chaotic battle. They were outnumbered, and their opponents were agile monkeys. This should be the best way to stimulate their reaction speed. How? Stepped on the branch and leaped up. The dagger in his hand was aimed at the Monkey King. The Monkey King was originally just watching from the tree. When it saw the dagger coming at it, the claws on its hands and feet lit up. It screamed and pounced at How. Its speed was as fast as the wind, but it had a fierce momentum. Rip. Chapter 4995. I didn't expect them to react so quickly. One of the elite guards looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but sigh softly. Their courage is also extraordinary. The other person also said, looking at the 2 little ones attacking fiercely, they didn't hesitate at all. Around the big tree, monkey corpses fell messily on the ground. Fresh blood splattered everywhere and filled the air. I heard from Miss Me, that the ferocious beast that we ate yesterday was hunted by them. TSK. Not simple, really not simple. No wonder Master agreed to bring them into the forest. However, I'm afraid Master didn't know that they had such skills. Indeed, he didn't know. They originally followed Miss Me back. Quickly look. As the 2 of them were talking, one of them suddenly saw Yun-chi in front of them, keeping her dagger, and change it to a whip. He couldn't help but widen his eyes. What are you looking at? The other elite guard followed his gaze and looked at the whip that Yun-chi was pulling out. When the whip lashed out, the monkey screamed and covered its head with its hands. It was obvious that it was extremely afraid of the whip. Her whip is really nimble. These monkeys are probably most afraid of whips. One of the elite guards said with a smile on his face. When the other person heard this, he couldn't help but roll his eyes and said, "Who told you to look at her whip skills? I'm asking you to look at her whip. Look at that whip. Whip." The elite guard at the side looked at the whip in Yun Chi's hand and said, "It looks like an extraordinary weapon. However, I don't use whips and am not very familiar with this type of weapon. What's wrong with this whip? Is there a problem? If I'm not wrong, this whip should be the ancient deity whip. I heard that this whip was bestowed by Emperor Qing to his disciple Yun Chi to protect herself. Furthermore, he even issued a kill order. He said that if anyone dared to have any ideas about his disciple Yun Chi's deity whip, their entire family would be annihilated." As the elite guard said this, his eyes flashed, and there was a trace of excitement in his expression. He didn't expect that he would actually be able to see the ancient deity whip. Originally, he had only seen this whip in the armament manual. He didn't expect to see a real whip. If this whip wasn't wrong, then the identity of the three of them. In an instant, he understood. Why would Master personally bring them into the forest? So he already knew the identities of the three of them? It was no wonder. How could the person that missed me or it brought back not explain clearly to her parents? Then aren't they Qing? The elite guard at the side exclaimed softly, but before he could finish his words, his mouth was covered. "It's good that you know. Don't say it out loud," he hurriedly said. He looked around and saw that there was no one else around. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. "Master knows about it too?" The elite guard asked. "Of course we know, but since Master didn't say anything, we have to keep our mouths shut and not speak of it." The person next to him said as he looked ahead and couldn't help but be startled. In just a short while, there were only a dozen or so golden monkeys left. Creak, creak. The remaining 10 or so golden-haired monkeys cried out in panic. They no longer cared about fighting and quickly fled. In a few breaths, they had disappeared into the forest. Eldest senior brother, where is Monkey King? You, or looked towards Howard and asked. "I killed him." Chapter 4996. Okay. Ewer took the crystal core and looked at it. Then, she followed him to the big tree to check it out. Finally, they saw that there was a small tree hole on one side of the big tree. A pile of leaves covered something, and when they pushed it aside, they saw some strange things inside. "Big brother, where did this monkey get these things? Is this shiny thing a pearl?" Ewer took out a fist-sized bead. It was suffused with a layer of spiritual light, but they didn't know what it was. "How?" I went forward to take a look and saw that most of them were shining or colorful stones and so on. He said, "Put these things away and take them away." Okay. Ewer crawled inside and put away all the things inside. The two elite guards quickly went forward and said, "Young Master Chun, why don't we go back first? Maybe they're already preparing food." The two secretly wiped their sweat, really worried that they would go deeper. Hearing this, Hao looked at Mu Chun and Mu Yu and asked, "Are you hungry?" "Not hungry." The two shook their heads. They had eaten, so they really didn't feel hungry. Why don't we go and see if Miss Me has picked any ingredients?" The other elite guard said. He felt that it was better to bring them back. First, their fighting power was a little scary, and second, they were afraid that if they went deeper, they would encounter something that they couldn't handle. If something happened, even 10 of them wouldn't be able to compensate. "Then let's go back first," Mu Chan said. "The monkey's corpse here will attract other fierce beasts. In order to prevent them from worrying, let's go back first." Okay. Howard nodded and then followed the two elite guards to Mi Er's place, ready to help her find ingredients. Song Lingbo looked at the whole tiger skin that was peeled off, and a smile appeared on his face. He was about to put it away and give it to his wife when he heard a voice. "Your Excellency, this tiger skin is very good. I wonder if you can sell it to me?" Hearing the voice, Song Lingbo looked up and saw a group of about 40 to 50 people coming from not far away. The middle-aged man in the lead was staring at the tiger skin in his hand. "Sorry, I want this tiger pelt for myself." As Song Lingbo spoke, he kept the tiger skin and said to the guard beside him, "Prepare the tiger meat and boil the bones into soup." We will have this red ground tiger for lunch. Yes. Those elite guards respectfully replied. After glancing at those people, they got to work. At this time, the Song family members were dressed in ordinary robes. The only advantage was that it was resistant to dirt and convenient. They did not have anything special on them. Therefore, after those people sized them up, they showed an inexplicable expression. Hey, who are you? How dare you enter the forest with just a few people? A man in his 30s shouted at them from behind. Song Lingbo looked at the elite guards and didn't need him to say anything. Hence, he looked at the group of people standing not far away. His gaze landed on the middle-aged man in the lead and said, "With Commander Chai's ability, you shouldn't be lacking in meat, right? Why are you staring at us like that?" Chapter 4997. I've heard of you, but I didn't expect to have the honor of meeting you today, Song Lingbo said as he tidied his robe. Hearing this, Leader Chai narrowed his eyes as his mind spun. A person who could tell his identity at a glance was not simple. However, who could this person be? He knew that they were a mercenary group, but he was not afraid at all. Was he brave? Or was he putting on a strong front? May I know who you are? Leader Chai asked as his gaze fell on Ouyangming. Song Lingbo. He raised his hand and cupped his fist. God of cooking Song Lingbo. Leader Chai raised his voice slightly. It was not difficult to hear the surprise in his voice. Father, we're back. Mir brought the 3 children back with some unknown items in her hands. Hauer and the other 2 also helped to carry some items. The 2 elite guards behind them carried some branches that they had picked up. Seeing them, Song Lingbo smiled. Don't run around. The fire has already started. Sit for a while, and you could drink some soup first. Mir and the rest walked closer and sized up the group. They saw that the group of 40 to 50 people had a bloody aura on them. Furthermore, each of them had a ferocious and bloodthirsty look on their faces. They could not help but frown slightly and walked away from them. Hee. Leader, I heard that the god of cooking Song Lingbo's culinary skills are extraordinary. Furthermore, the food that he makes can replenish the spiritual energy in one's body and increase one's strength to help one break through. It's like an elixir. Don't you think that we'll miss such a good opportunity? A man lowered his voice as he spoke. His eyes were filled with excitement as he glanced at Song Mir and the 3 children with a vicious look. The smile on his face deepened. Leader, look, they have a woman and 3 children. Furthermore, there are only a few of them. The meaning of his words was self-evident. Leader Chai's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. It had to be said that when he found out that this person was the god of cooking Song Lingbo, he already had that thought. However, the god of cooking Song Lingbo's abilities were extraordinary, so he did not dare to act rashly. However, if he captured the woman and the 3 children first, would he not be afraid that Song Lingbo would not submit? Chef God Song, I've heard a lot about you. As Leader Chai spoke, he raised his hands and cupped them. At the same time, he took a step forward. However, just as he finished speaking, he suddenly threw out a net towards Song Mir and the 3 children. The moment the net reached them, it quickly retracted. As a result, they were unable to dodge it in time, as they were holding things in their hands. Ah! Song Mir cried out in shock, and the thing in her hand fell to the ground. She used both hands to support the net, wanting to remove it, but the net tightened around her. Hauer, Mu Chun, and Yer were also stunned for a moment. The things in their hands also fell to the ground. The people who were caught in the net were dragged to the team. Those people quickly surrounded them and trapped them in the middle. Seeing this, the 3 of them looked at each other and didn't say anything. They just stood there quietly. When Song Lingbo saw that Chai San dared to attack them, even after knowing who he was furious. His face darkened, and he shouted angrily, Chai San, let them go. Chapter 4998. Chai San glanced at the people trapped in the net with a smile on his face. Chai San, if you let them go now and get out of my sight, I can pretend that this never happened. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Song Lingbo shouted in a deep voice. Hee, Chef God Song, don't you want them to be safe? He smiled confidently and looked at the people trapped in the net. Then, he looked at Song Lingbo and said, I know that Chef God Song is strong and your knife skills are superb. If we were to fight you directly, Even with so many of us, I'm afraid it would be difficult to defeat you. However, with these people in our hands, unless Chef Godsong doesn't want them to live, it would be better for you to talk to me. Talk. Oomph. What do you want to talk about? Song Lingbo snorted coldly. No one knew what he was thinking. He glanced at the three calm children, and the anxiety between his brows gradually disappeared. I heard that Chef Godsong's cooking is similar to the elixirs of alchemists. What we want is very simple. We just need Chef Godsong to brew something for us that can improve our strength. As long as Chef Godsong agrees, this chai will naturally not hurt them. Otherwise, when the dagger cut through the net, the two elite guards, and jumped out of the net. At the same time, a cold voice came out from Hao Er's mouth. Otherwise, what? As soon as the voice came out, he held the dagger in his hand and attacked Chai San. His speed was so fast that it was like a shadow passing by, catching people off guard. Whoosh! Chai San only felt a sharp chi blade slashing towards him. The cold aura was mixed with a cold, murderous aura. Chai San turned around abruptly, only to see a cold light coming toward his throat. The murderous aura made him dodge without thinking, but he still had time to avoid the fatal blow. When the sharp blade missed his throat, it turned and slashed towards his shoulder. Hiss! Ah! He felt a sharp pain and blood splashed out. He instinctively cried out in pain and raised his hand to attack. Song Lingbo, who was not far away, immediately went forward and grabbed Hao Er's collar with one hand and sent him behind him. At the same time, he condensed spiritual energy with the other hand to meet Chai San's attack. Bang! When the two palms collided, a powerful airflow burst out from the palms of the two people and spread out to the surroundings. Wind blades and airflow surged. Almost at that moment, the people on both sides recovered from their shock and quickly attacked each other. A chaotic battle had begun. F*CK. This brat. One of the mercenaries originally thought that since it was only a child, he would deal with him first. Who would have thought that the little brat's skills were swift and fierce, and his first move was a killing move, forcing him to retreat step by step in panic. Brat? More than enough to kill you. Mu Chun snorted coldly. Holding the dagger in his hand, Yudu leaned forward and attacked the man's fatal spot. On the other side, the figure of Yu nimbly jumped, and after dodging the attack of several mercenaries, she swept the lower body of those mercenaries with her dagger. Her small figure quickly passed by them, and when her figure passed by them, the dagger in her hand would definitely slash towards their legs. My leg. What the hell? Brat, don't let me catch you. Chapter 4999. Although there were few people on the Song family side, each one of them could fight against 10 people. Even if Hao and the other two were younger, their fighting strength could not be ignored. At this moment, a throwing knife flashed across Chai San's throat. When he saw Chai San fall to the ground with a groan, Song Lingbo raised his head and looked ahead. His eyes flashed, and he originally wanted to shout for everyone to stop, but the words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say them. In front of them, Jingwei, Mi and the three children were engaged in a chaotic battle with the mercenaries. Jingwei ignored them for now. His gaze landed on Mi, and the three children. After seeing their astonishing battle strength, his expression became somewhat strange. He knew his daughter. Even if she could fight, she would not be able to fight against 3 mercenaries. But now, she looked like she was handling a butcher's cleaver with ease, which made him surprised. As for the 3 children, he already knew that they were Emperor Qing's disciples. Naturally, their fighting strength would not be too bad. In addition, they had also fought in this forest these days, so he more or less had some confidence. And now, even if their opponents were mercenaries, they were still decisive and neat. That kind of ruthlessness really made people raise their eyebrows. The 3 brothers of the Song family heard the commotion and ran back. They originally thought that something had happened, but they did not expect to see this scene. They were also stunned. They looked at their father and asked, "Father, what happened?" "TSK, TSK. I didn't expect their fighting strength to be so strong. That is Chai San's mercenary group." Just now, he briefly explained the matter, paused, and said, I just don't know how it developed into this. The scene in front of them was almost a one-sided slaughter, as more and more corpses appeared on the ground. The remaining 10 or so people fled into the forest in a panic. They thought that those people would be able to escape, but who would have thought that in the next moment, Lion chased them to the place where those monkeys were? You shouted, and after her voice fell, a ray of light leaped out. Perhaps for the sake of not letting its roar scare the ferocious beasts inside the forest. After the lion leaped out, it didn't roar, rather roared, and chased after those dozen or so people who were running away, chasing them towards the place where the corpses of those monkeys were. In this forest, the smell of fresh blood was the easiest to attract fierce beasts. With so many monkey corpses and the smell of blood permeating the area, if these people were to rush over now, they would die without a burial ground even if they didn't do anything. Perhaps it was because the few of them had given them too much shock. When the divine beast-level lion appeared, the people of the Song family only flashed their eyes. They didn't say anything, nor did they exclaim. As the disciple of Emperor Qing, it was not strange for him to have a contract beast at the level of a divine beast. If there was no guarantee, Emperor Qing would not have let them travel outside without protection. Not long after, shrill screams came from the forest, as well as the roars of beasts and cries for help. The voices grew softer and softer until they disappeared. Chapter 5000. The lion lying in the grass saw the group of ferocious beasts staring at it and stopped hiding. Instead, it stood up and growled threateningly at them. The group of ferocious beasts that originally wanted to follow the scent of blood to hunt their prey quickly retreated when they saw the lion standing up. They lowered their heads slightly and growled. The lion stared at them until they retreated and left. Only then did it walk back to its little master's side. On the other side, Song Lingbo had the elite guards quickly tidy up the scene. After a final count of the spoils of war, he divided the items into 2 portions, one for the elite guards and the other for the 3 children. We don't want these. You can keep them. How? Shook his head and did not take them. Take them. These are what you deserve. Song Lingbo said with a smile and placed the items in his hands. Seeing this, How? Took them and passed them to the 2 elite guards behind him. Then you can have them. This. The 2 elite guards looked at him in astonishment, then looked at their master. Songmi said with a smile, just take what he gave you. They don't lack these things. Since it's a gift from him, you should take it. Song Lingbo finally said. Hearing this, the 2 elite guards immediately cupped their fists and bowed. Thank you, young Master Chen. Let's change to another place. This place reeks of blood. It's not suitable to stay any longer. Song Lingbo said and indicated for them to pack up and change to another place to rest. Yes. Everyone responded and quickly packed up and moved. Compared to their adventures in the forest, Fengjiu in the Song residence was much more leisurely. When she had nothing to do, she would chat with Madame Song. Occasionally, she would go out for a stroll. Sometimes, she would stay in the courtyard to read a book or enter the space to refine pills. While waiting for the children to return, she had a leisurely life. On this day, she came out of the space after refining pills. Her body smelled of medicine. She asked the servants to prepare water for her bath. After bathing, she planned to eat something and rest well. After bathing, she sat in the courtyard and ate. Seeing the servant girls and guards outside the courtyard rushing by, she looked at one of the servant girls and asked, "Where are they going? Why do they all look so hurried?" The maidservant curtsied and said, replying to Madame's question, "It seems that there are guests in front of us." However, before the family had left, he instructed us to close the doors and decline all visitors during this period of time. The guests hit the gatekeeper, so everyone in the residence went to take a look. Hearing this, Fengjiu did not speak and continued eating her food. During this period of time, only people who were sensible would not visit. At this time, the guests of the family, unless she was the kind of person who purposely came to cause trouble when the male owner was not at home. Chapter 5001. Fengjiu was taking a stroll in the courtyard to help with digestion. Calculating the time, it should have been half a month, right? They should be back soon. She wondered if those little fellows had improved their skills after leaving. She took a stroll in the courtyard and took a sip of tea. After thinking for a while, she walked towards the front courtyard. Now that the head of the Song family was not here, and the Song family was Er's family, although the Song family's elders were here, she still felt that it would be better to take a look at Madame Song's gentle personality. While she was walking towards the front courtyard of the Song residence was currently in a mess. The middle-aged gatekeeper was currently lying on the ground with blood at the corner of his mouth. A few of the Song family's guards were tangled up in a chaotic battle with the guards of the newcomers. Although they didn't use their weapons and didn't take anyone's life, the strength of their fists when they smashed onto the bodies of the people was real. Even if those who were smashed didn't die, they definitely weren't lightly injured. "All of you stop," a voice filled with anger shouted, and the people from both sides stopped fighting at this moment. Everyone looked towards the beautiful woman who had walked out. When the Song family's people saw her, they immediately stepped back and made way for her. At the same time, they bowed. "Madam." Madame Song's face darkened. She walked forward and angrily looked at the group of people in front of her. "Who are you people? You forced your way into the manor and even injured my people. Do you want to become enemies with my Song family?" Even those who were mild-mannered had to put on the airs of the mistress of the house and shout in a deep voice. "Ah, Madame Song, please calm down." A man in his 40s smiled. His gaze fell on Madame Song, and he discreetly sized her up. The smile on his face deepened as he said, "It's because the servants have no manners that they started fighting with the people in the manor. This was not my intention." As he spoke, he looked at Madame Song, whose face and eyes were red from anger, and said apologetically, "It's all my fault for not disciplining them properly. That's why the servants were so impudent. I will give Madame Song an explanation." As he spoke, he took a step forward and pulled out the sword of a guard beside him. With a swish, he cut off the arm of a guard. "Ah!" A blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out, causing everyone's hearts to skip a beat. When they saw this scene, the faces of the Song family members changed slightly. This person made a move without hesitation and chopped off the guard's arm. It had to be said that such an explanation extinguished the fire in their hearts. The guard whose arm was cut off, apart from letting out a miserable cry of pain, knelt down because of the sword strike. His severed arm flew out and rolled before him. His other hand clutched the wound where blood flowed endlessly. His face was deathly pale, but he did not dare to make another sound. Instead, he lowered his head, his voice carrying a trace of trembling and forbearance as he said, "Madame Song, please calm down." Madame Song did not expect this person to suddenly chop off the guard's arm. At this point, she was also stunned. Looking at this scene, she didn't say anything for a while. Not far away, Fengjiu leaned against the wall and watched the scene in front of him. His eyes flashed when he saw the middle-aged man cut off the arm of the guard beside him. No one knew what she was thinking, but she just stood there and watched quietly. Chapter 5002. The middle-aged man smiled and handed the sword in his hand to the guard beside him with a look of disapproval. His expression was as if he had not cut off the arm of the guard beside him, but some unimportant cat or dog. "Madam, I'm sorry for startling you. I apologize to you." He smiled and cupped his hands towards Madame Song. "I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Chung Wanli, and I'm here to pay a visit to Brother Song. I don't know if Brother Song has mentioned me to you. Back in Taiping Mountain, Brother Song and I went through a life and death situation. I've always wanted to pay you a visit, but I never had the chance. This time, I'm here to pay a visit to Brother Song, but I didn't expect my subordinates to cause such a ruckus." Madame Song's anger dissipated when she heard the apology in his voice and how he had personally dealt with the troublemakers, addressing her as Madame Song and apologizing to her. She looked at the person called Chung Wanli in front of her and said slowly, "Since you are old friends with my family's master, then let's drop this matter. I won't bicker with you. However, my master is yet to return and has ordered the doors to be closed. I'm afraid he won't be able to entertain you." Chung Wanli's eyes flashed, and a trace of hesitation appeared on his face. "So Brother Song isn't in the estate? Then I've come at the wrong time. It's just that." His voice paused, and there was a trace of embarrassment on his face as he said, "It's just that my wife suffered from an old illness on the way here and is currently unconscious. I wonder if sister-in-law can allow us to rest in the residence for a day or two." Hearing this, Madame Song was startled, and a trace of hesitation appeared on her face. Only then did she see that in the middle of these people, there were two servant girls who seemed to be supporting a cloaked woman who was leaning on them. Because the other party was still wearing a cloak on her head, her body was also completely covered by the large black cloak, and only her extremely beautiful face could be faintly seen. As for the woman, just as he said, she was currently unconscious with her eyes closed. "What's going on?" An old voice sounded. At this moment, everyone looked back and saw several elders coming out. It seemed that they heard about the disturbance in front of the estate and came to take a look. Seeing the severed arm on the ground, the elders all frowned. Their faces were filled with displeasure. One of them said, "What's going on? Why is there blood?" Second elder, "It's like this." The steward quickly explained the ins and outs of the matter to them. "Chung Wanli?" Fourth elder looked at the middle-aged man in surprise and asked, "You're Chung Wanli? Which Chung clan are you from?" When the others heard the elder's question, they all looked at him, wondering why he asked this question. Mrs. Song didn't say anything, and no one knew what she was thinking. "I'm from the Chung family in Longnan. My brother is the head of the Chung family, Chung Wanshan." Chung Wanli smiled and cupped his hands. When he said these words, there was a trace of unconcealable arrogance on his face. Hearing this, the elders' expressions changed slightly. Long Nan's Chung family. Chapter 5003. Thinking of the Long Nan Chung family's background, the elders were slightly moved. Suppressing their shock, they immediately turned to Madame Song and said, "Since he and Lingbo are old friends and Madame Song is sick, let's invite them to rest in the residence for a day or two." Hearing this, Madame Song frowned slightly and said, "But before Master left, he said that he would not be receiving guests during this period." Moreover, she didn't know whether it was a woman's intuition or not, but she didn't like this group of people, especially Chung Wanli. This person had chopped off the arm of the guard beside him, and he didn't even frown. It was as if he didn't care that the guard was one of his people. This kind of person was ruthless, and she felt that there was something wrong with his words and actions. She didn't know why Chung Wanli was old friends with her husband, but her intuition told her that she didn't want them to stay in the mansion. That's one thing. The Chung family of Longnan aren't people we don't know. It's fine to let them stay for a day or two. Moreover, as the host, we have guests from afar. It's only natural for us to treat them well, fourth elder said. He then looked at first elder and signaled them with his eyes. In fact, they felt that the Chung family of Longnan was a big family. It wouldn't be a bad thing to be friends with such a big family. Moreover, although Song Lingbo and his son weren't in the mansion, they were in the mansion. They didn't have to worry about anything. Moreover, the Chung family of Longnan was here as guests. Would they do anything to harm the Song family? It was almost impossible for such a thing to happen. Just let them stay. It's not like we don't have a guest house, first elder said. He then turned to the steward and said, "Take the guests to rest and treat them well." The steward glanced at Madame Song. Seeing that she didn't say anything, he replied, "Yes." Then he gestured to Chung Wanli and the others. "This way, please. Elders, sister-in-law, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again later." As he spoke, he cupped his hands and smiled before following the butler inside. As he walked inside, Chung Wanli's gaze suddenly stopped, and he looked at an ordinary-looking green-robed woman in the corner. His gaze narrowed, and after confirming that she was a very ordinary cultivator, he withdrew his gaze and walked inside. Feng Jiu's gaze lightly swept over the group of people. His eyes moved slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. He glanced at Madame Song, who was being called over by the elders, and paused for a moment before turning around and walking back. That group of people didn't look like good people, especially the one called Chung Wanli. She couldn't be wrong. When he looked at Madame Song, there was a glimmer of light in his eyes, as if he was looking at a prey. It was really unpleasant. There was also that woman who said she was his wife. Even though that woman's hair covered half of her face, making it hard to see her clearly, he could tell that she was very young. A woman in her 20s, How could she be the wife of such a person? Hee. It would be strange if she didn't have a problem. It seems that the Song family is in trouble. She sighed, shook her head, and walked back. She wondered when Song Lingbo and the others would return. Chapter 5004. Steward Song led the Chung family to the guest courtyard and retreated. The Chung family's guards guarded the inside and outside of the courtyard, not allowing the Song family to have a chance to approach. In the side room, the two maidservants placed the woman on the bed and retreated, quietly guarding the door. Chung Wanli walked forward and sat beside the bed. He reached out and unsealed the woman's acupuncture points. Not long after, the unconscious woman slowly opened her eyes. However, her eyes were filled with anger and hatred as she glared at Chung Wanli. She wanted to move, but she couldn't. Even if she wanted to curse, she couldn't make a sound. Hee, have you slept enough on the way here? He reached out and caressed her face. He brushed her hair behind her ear, revealing an absolutely stunning face. Looking at her breathtaking face, Chung Wanli's eyes narrowed, and a look of infatuation appeared on his face. He reached out and caressed her face. His fingers traced her eyebrows, down her nose, and down her lips. His fingers moved to her chin and gently lifted her chin. Then, he leaned over and kissed her. The woman's body stiffened. Her eyes were filled with anger, but there was nothing she could do. She could only let him do whatever he wanted. Suddenly, Chung Wanli let out a low cry and stepped back. His face was livid as he stared at the woman on the bed, who was glaring at him fiercely. His tongue was bitten, and his lips were bitten. Blood oozed out his mouth. The pain made his whole face darken instantly. He waved his hand and slapped the woman on the bed fiercely. Slut! At the same time, a loud slap sounded from his mouth. The people outside the courtyard heard the slap and his curses. No one turned around to look. No one was curious or probed. They just stood there expressionlessly, doing their own things. In the side room, the woman on the bed was fiercely slapped. Half of her face was swollen. Blood seeped from the corner of her mouth as she glared at Chung Wanli. Her eyes seemed to say, "Kill her if you have the guts." Hey! Chung Wanli spat out a mouthful of blood. He wiped the corner of his mouth and lightly touched his tongue. He reached out and pinched the woman's chin. You want to die? You want to provoke me to kill you? Huh, don't even think about it. I haven't even tasted you properly, so how can I let you die like this? He flung his hand and snorted coldly. If you're obedient, you can suffer less. If you really annoy me, you'll suffer. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and walked out. After he left, the woman on the bed was left alone in the room. She stared at the ceiling in a daze. Her eyes were filled with despair and sadness. A teardrop fell from the corner of her eye and dripped down her cheek onto the pillow, leaving a shallow tear stain. In the room next door, Chung Wanli was talking to 4 old men. One of them paused and looked at Chung Wanli, asking, "Second master, should we make a move tonight?" Chung Wanli gently pressed the medicine on his lips with his finger and said, "There's no hurry. I'll go check it out tonight. It won't be too late to make a move after I figure it out. The main thing is to not alarm those old guys first, lest things get out of hand." As soon as he spoke, his bitten tongue began to hurt. He couldn't help but frown, and his expression darkened. Chapter 5005. So what if he's back? Do you think he dares to go against our Chung clan? Another old man said, his tone full of contempt. Right now, Song Lingbo is the only one supporting the Song clan. His strength is indeed extraordinary. However, this person refuses to be used by others. Otherwise, my Chung clan would have wanted to recruit him. What a pity. Chung Wanli sneered, then seemed to have thought of something. His eyes moved slightly, and an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. But this Song Lingbo's wife is indeed a beauty. She's already the mother of several children, but she's still so charming. It's a different kind of taste. Second master, why don't you take care of the woman you brought along? It's hard to guarantee that nothing will happen to her on the road. After all, that woman isn't content with her lot. An old man said, then remembered that there was another woman in his room. Now that he thought of Song Lingbo's woman, he shook his head inwardly, but felt that it was normal. Chung Wanli's only hobby was beauties. There were dozens of women in his courtyard, if not hundreds, and each of them had a different kind of charm. However, he didn't expect that his taste would become more and more unique, to the point that he even had thoughts of women. That's the woman I'm planning to bring back to the backyard. She hasn't been naked yet. Moreover, the wounds on her body haven't healed yet. I have no interest in touching a woman covered in wounds. As he spoke, he touched his lips, revealing a strange smile. This woman is very spicy, just like a wild horse. I have plenty of time to tame her. Second Master, do you want me to accompany you tonight? An old man asked, looking at him. There are still many hidden guards in the Song residence. I'm worried that you won't be able to take care of all of them. Sure, just one person will be enough. He touched his chin as he spoke. Thinking of Madame Song's appearance and figure, he felt a little impatient. At this moment, Madame Song was walking towards Fengjiu's courtyard. Seeing her taking a stroll in the courtyard, she walked up and called out, Madame Xianyuan. Fengjiu turned around and raised his eyebrows when he saw her. Madame Song, why are you here? I'm here to tell you that there are some guests in the residence. They're all male guests. I'm worried that you'll meet them when you go out. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, So that's what happened. Just now, I heard from a maidservant that there were guests who came and caused a ruckus in the front yard. So I went over to take a look. I also saw those people. Madame Song frowned and said uneasily, I don't know why, but I felt uneasy when I saw those people. They said they were from the Chung family. Do you know the Chung family? It's the biggest clan in the Longnan region. Because their clan has produced 9 supreme being experts, their status is extraordinary. She sat down by the stone table in the courtyard, with a trace of worry between her brows. My Song clan is a clan of culinary cultivators. My father-in-law, the ancestor of the Song clan, has been in seclusion for many years. Some say that he passed away. Some say that he can't break through. There are all kinds of rumors outside. Now, only my husband is supporting the Song clan. A clan like ours naturally can't compare to the Chung clan in Longnan. So even if I don't like those people, when the elders asked me to let them stay, I couldn't refuse. Chapter 5006. Fengjiu smiled and sat down at the table. Since they want to stay, then let them stay. Let's see what they want to do. Madame Song was slightly startled. Seeing her carefree expression and the calm smile on her face, she inexplicably calmed down. She composed herself and said apologetically, I've made a fool of myself. There's no one I can talk to at home, and I can talk to you. That's why I said this in front of you. It's fine, Fengjiu said with a smile. I'm happy to listen. Moreover, I don't think the Song family is inferior to the Chung family. A gentle smile blossomed on Madame Song's face as she said, My husband's reputation as the god of cookery has spread far and wide. His strength and cultivation are also not weak. In this area, all the clans and forces give him face. No one has ever made things difficult for our Song clan. Speaking of her husband, a proud expression appeared on her face. His voice paused, and the expression on his face disappeared as he continued. However, compared to the Chung clan, the Song clan is indeed incomparable. Right now, I am hoping that they will leave as soon as possible after resting for a day or two, lest something happens. The two chatted in the courtyard for a while. Not long after, Madame Song got up and left. After she left, Fengjiu also returned to her room to sleep. When night fell, Fengjiu quietly left the courtyard and went to the guest courtyard where the Chung family lived. In the dark, she noticed that the courtyard was tightly guarded. Moreover, during the day, she also noticed that Chung Wanli was followed by 4 powerful elders. Thus, she was especially careful when she approached the courtyard. She avoided those eyes and ears and quietly snuck into the courtyard. Her figure jumped up and lay down on the roof. Her figure was hidden in the night, and no one noticed. She lay down and listened to the movements below. She could faintly hear Chung Wanli's voice coming from the room below. Apply medicine for her. Treat her injuries as soon as possible. She's an eyesore. Chung Wanli flicked his sleeves and left the room. He went to another room. Not long after, the 2 maidservants also left the room after applying the medicine and stood guard outside the door. She lifted a corner of the roof and looked down. On the bed, the woman who had been unconscious during the day was now awake, but she was lying motionless on the bed. Her body was covered with a blanket, and there seemed to be no clothes under the blanket. After glancing at it, she put the corner back and gently jumped to the roof of another house. In the room, one of the old men said to Chung Wanli, "It's late now. If you want to go do something, then go. If you can't find out where the Song family's treasure is, remember to use medicine to make her forget what happened tonight, so as not to alert the enemy." "I know, don't worry. I know what to do," Chung Wanli said with a smile. He stood up and straightened his robe. "Then I'll go now. Old Fu, let's go. I'll go in when the time comes. You stay outside and watch for me." "All right," an elder replied. He walked to his side and walked out with him. After Fengjiu saw the two of them leave the room, she restrained her aura and walked into the night. The direction she was heading was the direction of the main courtyard. Chapter 5007. In the room, the three elders shook their heads. "If Second Master doesn't restrain himself, I'm really worried that he'll cause trouble one day." "Restrain himself? Haha, that's his only hobby. How do you expect him to restrain himself? That woman in the main house, if it wasn't for her injuries that made him uninterested, he would have plucked her long ago. How could she still be a pure and innocent woman? Haha, from what I see, it's not that he's uninterested. It's just that he's interested in Song Lingbo's wife. But this time, we're mainly here to retrieve that item from the Song family. We didn't expect Second Master to have some fun, too. Along the way, it's not like he only had fun once. Which one of those women would remember him after that? Speaking of which, that medicine is really good stuff. Isn't that so? But that medicine can only be obtained by the Chung family's direct descendants or those with high status in the family. Fengjiu listened for a while on the roof and stopped listening. She was mainly worried about Madame Song in the main house. If Mi-er's mother was taken advantage of right under her nose, she wouldn't have the face to see anyone in the future. Immediately, she turned around and stealthily headed in the direction of the main house. The cultivation of the people from the Chung clan was indeed stronger than the people from the Song clan. The two of them walked towards the main courtyard, easily avoiding the secret guards and guards of the residence, and quietly arrived at the main courtyard. Chung Wanli signaled the elder with his eyes. The elder stayed in a secret corner of the house to keep watch. Only Chung Wanli quietly went forward. At this moment, Madame Song was only wearing a white inner garment. She held a book in her hand and leaned against the headboard. However, she seemed to have fallen asleep, and the book in her hand fell off. She supported her head with one hand and turned her body sideways. The blanket on her body only covered her waist. Under the nightlight, a few strands of hair fell on her face, adding a bit of charm to her outstanding appearance. Because her body was slightly slanted, her collar was slightly open. Her snow-white skin was very alluring under the nightlight. Chung Wanli, who saw this scene from the rooftop, couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He carefully observed from head to toe, and the more he looked, the more intense his gaze became. He noticed that she was the only one sleeping on the bed in the room. Thus, he gently took out something from his sleeve, lit it up, and placed it in the room. Wisps of smoke rose into the air. The faint scent was so faint that if a person who was asleep was not very sensitive to smell, they would not be able to detect it. Madame Song, who was lying on the bed, seemed to smell the odor and wanted to open her eyes. However, her heavy eyelids prevented her from doing so. In the next moment, she lost consciousness. In that instant, she was shocked, but there was nothing she could do. She sank into endless darkness. Seeing the woman on the bed fall down, Chung Wanli on the roof revealed a strange smile. He jumped down from the roof and directly jumped in through the window. He came to the bedside and looked at the sleeping beauty on the bed. TSK, Song Lingbo is really lucky. This woman is indeed beautiful. She has a unique flavor. As he spoke, he stepped forward and lifted the blanket covering her body. When he saw her figure, his eyes burned even brighter. Chapter 5008. The old man, who was standing guard in the dark, narrowed his eyes and waited. His divine sense allowed him to clearly sense if anyone was approaching, even though he didn't open his eyes. However, he was unlucky enough to encounter Fengjiu. She was far stronger than him and could conceal her aura so well that no one could detect her presence. Because she was worried about Madame Song, Feng Jiu didn't delay. Instead, she flitted through the night and arrived behind the old man. Before the old man could react, she grabbed him by the throat. She originally intended to break his neck, but in that instant, she had a sudden thought and pierced the old man's acupuncture point with a silver needle. The old man's eyes, which were grabbed by the throat, suddenly opened. His eyes were filled with terror. He tried to shout, but he couldn't make a sound. He didn't even see who was behind him before he felt his acupuncture point go numb. In the next moment, he fainted. In the room, Madame Song, who was originally unconscious, was tied up with a binding immortal rope. The rope tied her tightly, showing off her graceful and voluptuous figure. Seeing this, Chung Wanli's mouth was dry and his tongue was dry. He was extremely excited. He took out a small bottle, opened it, and slid it under Madame Song's nose. Not long after, the unconscious Madame Song slowly woke up. When she saw Chung Wanli in front of the bed and that she was tied up, her face instantly turned pale. She opened her mouth to call for help, but found that she couldn't make a sound. Madame Song, you're awake? Chung Wanli looked at her and smiled. I didn't expect Brother Song to be so lucky. With such a beautiful wife at home, you're actually willing to leave for 10 days to half a month. Your heart is really big. Seeing her struggling on the bed and trying to shout, he laughed. Don't be afraid and don't panic. We have plenty of time to play tonight. I, Chung Wanli, have seen countless beauties and feel that the beauties in this world are really different. Especially someone like Madame Song. You're the best. As he spoke, he took a step closer and sat down on the bed. He reached out his hand to touch Madame Song's thigh. Madame Song was startled and hurriedly rolled to the corner of the bed to avoid his hand. Seeing her like this, he became even more proud and excited. Haha, don't panic. After tonight, you won't remember anything when you wake up tomorrow. Even if we have a night of ecstasy, I have a way to make you forget what happened tonight. Even if Song Lingbo comes back, he won't know that I slept with his woman. Oh, what method is that? Is it that powerful? A soft and unhurried voice was heard. There was a trace of coldness in that voice, but no one noticed it. Who's there? Chung Wanli groaned. When he wanted to turn around, he felt something piercing his body. His whole body instantly froze in place. His spiritual power aura was sealed, and he couldn't move. When Madame Song, who was curled up in the corner of the bed, saw the green figure appear, she was pleasantly surprised, startled, and worried. She didn't expect that the green figure would be able to subdue Chung Wanli. Sorry, I'm late. You must have been frightened. Chapter 5009. Madame Xinyuan, why are you here? Madame Song stood up and quickly put on her coat before walking over to Song Yinxian. Her face was still a little pale, but she suppressed her panic and calmed herself down. Feng Jiu smiled and glanced at Chung Wanli. I noticed that this person was looking at you strangely during the day. While I was out for a stroll at night, I saw him groping his way to your room in the dark. That's why I came over to take a look. As she spoke, she paused, and her gaze landed on that person. Mrs. Song, how do you think we should deal with this person? Madame Song was stunned and didn't know what to do. If they killed him, they couldn't afford to offend the Chung family. But if they didn't kill him, what happened tonight would spread. Madame Xinyuan, what do you think we should do? I don't know what to do. She was frightened tonight and felt a little better now, but her heart hadn't completely calmed down. She didn't know what to do either. Who are you? Do you want to die? How dare you touch me? Aren't you afraid of dying a horrible death? Chung Wanli shouted in a gloomy voice. He realized that other than his spiritual energy being sealed and his inability to move, he could still speak. However, he noticed that a soundproof barrier had been set up around the room at some point. Thinking of this woman who appeared without a sound, he narrowed his eyes and stared at her. She was dressed in green, plain and unremarkable, just like her unremarkable face. If she was on the streets, no one would pay her any attention. However, this woman's gaze was calm and indifferent, and her aura was restrained. He couldn't see her cultivation level, but he could feel that there was something different about her. That aura was the aura of an expert. Die a horrible death? Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows and laughed. She stared at him, and a strange smile appeared on her face. She reached out and flicked a few air currents 3 inches below his navel. He groaned, and his expression changed. What did you do to me? I just destroyed your manhood. Feng Jiu smirked. Your manhood will be destroyed sooner or later anyway. Isn't it easier for me to destroy it for you now? Bitch, I'm going to kill you. He roared. Because of his roar, the veins on his neck bulged, but he couldn't break free from the immobilized body. Mouth. As soon as Feng Jiu spoke, she raised her hand and a shadow flashed across the air. Slap, slap, slap. 3 heavy slaps landed on Cheng Wanli's face. She didn't use her palms to slap him. Instead, she used her palms to slap him. The power of her palms was not inferior to her palms. After 3 slaps, his face was swollen and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. How dare you hit me? You ah. Before he could finish his sentence, he heard a blood-curdling scream. Madame Song was stunned. She covered her mouth with both hands and looked at Madame Xinyuan with astonishment. Madame Xinyuan raised her leg and kicked Cheng Wanli's crotch. Even she felt pain from the kick, not to mention Cheng Wanli. Bang! Chapter 50:10. You can't take it anymore. Feng Jiu sneered and stepped on Cheng Wanli's arm, breaking it. The sound of him gasping could be heard. She seemed to have just remembered that Madame Song was still there. She pulled her foot back and smiled apologetically. Did I scare you? Actually, I'm not usually like this. Madame Song's heart thumped wildly. She looked at her in disbelief, as if she had just met her for the first time. She swallowed and shook her head. No, you didn't scare me. I just didn't expect you to be this kind of person, Madame Xinyuan. It didn't scare her, but she didn't expect that the gentle and approachable Madame Xinyuan would turn out to be such a person. What kind of person was she? For a moment, she couldn't find the right words to describe her. She only knew that this kind of Madame Xinyuan made her feel safe. She had done everything she didn't dare to do. Madame Xinyuan, what should we do now that he's in this state? The people he brought with him are still living in the guest courtyard. If anything happens to him, I'm afraid. She looked at Cheng Wanli, who was on the verge of death. She was worried. She wasn't worried that he would die. She was worried that if he died, the Song family would be in trouble. Oh, you don't have to worry. Feng Jiu patted her shoulder and smiled. You have me. Not to mention them. Even if the entire Cheng family comes looking for you, I can still protect your Song family. Madame Song couldn't help but fall into a daze when she heard her daughter's words, the confidence in her voice, and the vigor between her brows. She thought for a moment and said, Then how about this? Chase them out of the Song family residence. We can't let people like them stay here. Now that my husband isn't here, if you weren't here tonight, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Thinking about what happened earlier, she felt a lingering fear. If Madame Xinyuan hadn't rushed over, she would have been. Thinking of this, hatred grew in her heart. She stepped forward and kicked his crotch like Madame Xinyuan. This damned person, I really want to kill him. At this moment, Cheng Wanli could only groan and groan in pain. The most vulnerable part of his body had been kicked twice. Furthermore, the 2 kicks were so heavy and ruthless. It was already a miracle that he didn't faint on the spot. I heard that they came to your residence to take something, Feng Jiu said, staring at the pale-faced Cheng Wanli on the ground. What is it? Madame Song asked in confusion. Then we'll have to ask him. Feng Jiu smiled, playing with the dagger in his hand. He stared at Cheng Wanli and said, Speak. Why did you come to the Song family? What do you want? Bitch, you won't get a single word out of me, he said through gritted teeth, glaring angrily at the woman in green. He thought bitterly in his heart, if I find out who this woman is, I'll definitely wipe out her entire family. He wanted her to die without a burial place. No, he would be hacked to pieces and humiliated to death. Chapter 50:11. You don't want to talk? It doesn't matter. I'll just take it as practice on you. Feng Jiu's mouth twitched and a smile appeared on her face, but her eyes were cold. She pulled out the dagger that was stabbed into Cheng Wanli's thigh. At the same time, a pillar of blood spurted out. She raised her hand, and the dagger fell again. This time, she stabbed the same spot and the same wound. The same wound was stabbed again, but this time, the knife was not pulled out. Instead, The dagger was slowly rotating there. It was as if a bloody hole had been dug out. The pain in his heart made him feel like he was going to die and come back to life. He wanted to faint several times, but he was awakened by the pain. At this moment, he couldn't even scream. His lips trembled, and he couldn't say a word. Feng Jiu pulled out the dagger and wiped it on Cheng Wanli's clothes. She looked at the bloodstains on the floor and said to Madame Song, "I've dirtied your room. Get someone to clean it up later." Okay. Madame Song nodded in a daze. She didn't know what to say. "Are you going to talk or not?" Feng Jiu asked again as she twirled the dagger in her hand. In fact, she had plenty of pills in her space that could make him tell the truth. However, who told him to be so despicable? He even targeted a married woman and fell into her hands. Naturally, she wouldn't let him have it easy. Cheng Wanli's eyes were filled with fear when he saw her twirling the dagger in her hand. He forced himself to say, I'll talk. I'm here for the Song family's rainbow spirit stone." He gulped, afraid that she wouldn't believe him. He hurriedly said, "It's true. I'm really here for the rainbow spirit stone. We know that the Song family has a rainbow spirit stone. It's an extremely rare treasure, so we want to give it to the ancestor as a birthday gift." Feng Jiu glanced at him and chuckled when she saw the fear on his face. She then looked at Mrs. Song and asked, "Is there such a thing?" Madame Song was also startled when she heard about the rainbow spirit stone. When she heard Madame Xuanyuan's question, she nodded and said, "Our Song family does have a rainbow spirit stone. It's a treasure that our ancestor obtained. However, I've only seen it once." She didn't expect that this rainbow spirit stone would attract the attention of the Chang clan. She had heard from her husband that it was a rare treasure, but she didn't ask how rare it was or what it could be used for. This was because that thing had always been in the ancestor's cave. Since the ancestor had been cultivating in seclusion for many years, no one could see that thing. "I'm not lying to you. I'm really here for the rainbow spirit stone. Really. Let me go, and this matter will be settled. I won't cause trouble for you or the Song family." As Cheng Wanli spoke, he looked at the woman in green who was playing with the dagger. Fear flashed in his eyes as he said, "If you kill me, the Song clan will be in trouble because of this. It may even lead to the extermination of the clan. You better think carefully." Madame Song's heart sank. She was worried. However, she looked at Madame Xuanyuan. Madame Xuanyuan's expression was calm. There wasn't the slightest trace of fear or panic. Madame Song's worried heart gradually relaxed. Chapter 50:12. Feng Jiu smiled at his threatening words. She playfully glanced at Cheng Wanli's pale face and asked, "Then who is that woman in the room?" "She's my—" Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. "You'd best tell me the truth. If you try to trick me, you know the consequences." She played with the dagger in her hand as she spoke unhurriedly. Looking at the dagger, his face tightened and the corner of his mouth twitched. In the end, he said, "She's a woman I kidnapped. I planned on bringing her home as a concubine." Feng Jiu had already guessed this and wasn't surprised to hear him say this. She stared at Cheng Wanli on the ground and sneered, "I'm afraid that killing you would dirty this courtyard, so I'll just cripple your cultivation. When you return, have the Cheng clan bring gifts to apologize. Otherwise, I'll make sure your Cheng clan falls from the top nobility to a third-rate clan." As soon as she finished speaking, she crippled his cultivation. At the same time, he let out a blood-curdling scream. His complexion quickly aged and his entire body withered until he was on the verge of death. Feng Jiu waved her sleeve and removed the soundproof barrier around the room. She turned to Madame Song and said, "Call some people over. Throw them out." "Okay." Madame Song responded in a daze. She would do as Madame Song said. She lowered her head and checked her clothes before walking to the door. When she opened the door, she saw the collapsed person in the courtyard. Her eyes slightly trembled and her lips pursed. She took a deep breath and was about to call for help when she seemed to have thought of something. She looked back at Feng Jiu and hesitantly said, "Madame Xuanyuan, if we call for help, the Cheng clan will hear the news and come over. It's fine. Just call for help. Those people from the Cheng clan won't be able to do anything." Feng Jiu said with a faint smile. Seeing how confident she was, Madame Song called out, "Where are the hidden guards of the estate?" Her voice carried a hint of spiritual power, and at this moment, it spread clearly to half of the estate. Almost at the same time, when the secret guards in the manor heard her voice, their hearts sank. Their expressions changed slightly, and they quickly rushed to the main courtyard. When they arrived at the main courtyard, they were just in time to see Madame Xianyuan in green crippling the cultivation base of an unconscious old man from the Cheng family. They could not help but gasp, suppressing the shock and fear in their hearts. The hidden guards quickly stepped forward and saluted. "This subordinate greets Madam." After they spoke and saluted, the leader of the hidden guards looked at the courtyard and smelled the scent of blood. He asked, "Madam, what happened?" "Go and drag the people out of the room first. We'll see if our people have fainted or something," Mrs. Song said as she gestured for them to drag the people out of the room first. "Madam," when they heard that someone had entered Madame Song's room, their hearts tightened and they immediately went inside. However, they were shocked by the scene inside. They had just seen Cheng Wanli being invited into the courtyard as an honored guest. Now, he was lying in a pool of blood. His cultivation had been crippled, and he appeared old and withered. When they thought of how Madame Xianyuan had crippled the old man's cultivation, it wasn't hard to guess that Madame Xianyuan was the one who had caused Cheng Wanli's condition. Chapter 50:13. Who dares to harm my Cheng clan members? The group of people from the Cheng clan who were in the courtyard rushed over. They were led by 3 old men, and behind them were a few guards. Their appearance quickly surrounded the entire main courtyard. The 3 old men landed in the courtyard and quickly came to the side of Cheng Wanli and the other old man. When they saw their appearance, they sucked in a breath of cold air. His cultivation was actually crippled. With one's cultivation base crippled, it could be said that one's entire being was crippled. Cheng Wanli was still fine. He wasn't that old. His lifespan was still intact, but as for that old man, his cultivation base was crippled. Most probably, he wouldn't be able to live for much longer. "Who is it? Who did it?" The 3 old men roared, the anger in their hearts surging to their heads. Cheng Wanli's cultivation was crippled. How were they going to explain it to the clan head when they returned? One must know that Cheng Wanli and the clan head were born from the same mother. The clan head, Cheng Wanshan, had always treated him well. He allowed him to do whatever he wanted outside and rarely scolded him. Now that his cultivation was crippled, they could imagine how terrifying the clan head's anger would be when they returned. "What happened? What's going on?" The elders of the Song clan hurried over after hearing the news. Some of them even tied their robes as they walked. When they saw the angry faces of the Cheng clan members in the courtyard, they were slightly startled. Their gazes landed on the 2 people in the courtyard whose cultivations had been crippled. After looking for a while, they realized that it was Cheng Wanli and the other old man from the Cheng clan. However, at this moment, they were lying on the ground on the verge of death. The few of them looked at each other and frowned. They did not ask the Cheng clan members. Instead, they looked at Madame Song and asked directly, "What's going on? Aren't those 2 people from the Cheng clan? Why are they in the main courtyard?" Cheng Wanli snuck into the main courtyard at night and tried to do something to me. Madame Song did not say anything else. With just this sentence, everyone already knew what was going on. When the elders heard this, a trace of anger appeared on their faces. However, when they saw that the 2 people on the ground had their cultivations crippled and were covered in injuries, they suppressed the anger in their hearts. They had originally thought that since the Cheng family was a noble family with 9 powerful experts, it would be beneficial to their Song family if they could form a good relationship with them. However, they never thought that these people would have ulterior motives. "I didn't think that there would be such a shameless person in a powerful family." The great elder's aged voice was filled with anger and disdain. "Umph." An old man from the Cheng clan snorted. His aura spread out and headed towards the Song clan. He narrowed his eyes and shouted with a gloomy face, "Crippling 2 people from my Cheng clan. You Song clan people are quite capable." His gaze swept across the people in the courtyard, but he couldn't see anyone in the courtyard who could cripple the cultivation of the 2 people from the Cheng clan. "Who did it? You'd better come out obediently. Otherwise, don't blame us for slaughtering your entire Song clan tonight." The old man's gloomy gaze swept across the crowd. His voice was filled with murderous intent as it spread throughout the courtyard. Hearing this, the elders of the Song clan looked at each other. How could they know who had crippled the cultivation of the two people? However, since it happened in the Song clan's courtyard, it was definitely related to the Song clan. Chapter 50:14. Slaughter the entire Song family? How arrogant. Fengjiu slowly stepped forward. However, just as she took a step forward, her green figure flashed like a demon and instantly appeared behind one of the elders. She then grabbed his throat with one hand. Ah! The elder cried out in shock. His throat was lifted upwards, and he could not help but stand on his tiptoes. He lifted his chin slightly to ease the suffocating sensation. The aura of death instantly enveloped him. This scene had caught him off guard, and he did not even have time to react before he fell into the other party's hand. His lifeline had been grabbed, and he could not move. It was you who crippled their cultivation. When they saw the inconspicuous woman in green make her move, the other two elders immediately reacted. So the two of them had fallen into this woman's hands. She was quite capable to cripple their cultivation and injure them to such an extent. They narrowed their eyes at the thought of this, and a cold light flashed across their eyes. If I were you, I would release them and run for my life. Otherwise, you'll die a graveless death. Is that so? Fengjiu sneered. She raised her other hand and directly destroyed the cultivation of the old man who was being held in her hand. Ah! A shrill cry filled with unwillingness rang out. His entire being aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. His body became thin and small until his cultivation was completely crippled. He was then thrown aside by Fengjiu. In order not to sully the main courtyard, I will be merciful and not take your lives. I will let you live for a few more days. Fengjiu curled her lips and took out a handkerchief to wipe her hands. Her gaze turned, and her clear eyes fell on the two old men who had astonished and shocked expressions on their faces. You two crippled yourselves? Or should I help you? You, who are you? For someone to be able to hold them captive in one move, her power must be above theirs. Especially when this woman had not made a move, her murderous aura caused them to shiver. Her calm and bottomless eyes, as well as the faint smile on her lips, made people feel that she was extremely mysterious and dangerous at this moment. Demoness, eat my palm. An old man bit down on his knife and gathered his spiritual aura as he rushed forward. With a whoosh, he sent a palm strike towards Fengjiu. However, he did not expect that his powerful palm strike was easily neutralized by the other party's sleeve. Just as he widened his eyes in shock, he heard the other party's voice. Demoness? Huh. The last time someone called me that, not even their bones could be found. Fengjiu sneered. At the same time, he sent out a palm strike, which landed heavily on the old man's body and sent him flying. Bang! Pooh! The old man's body crashed heavily into the corner of the wall. Blood spurted out of his mouth. He wanted to stand up, but after struggling for a long time, he still couldn't stand up. In the end, he fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Why are you still standing outside? Attack! The other elder roared angrily and called in the guards who were standing guard outside. The elders of the Song family were just about to help when they saw the green-robed woman's figure flash and appear in front of the elder who had roared angrily. Chapter 50:15. Plop! He felt his knees with a loud thud. It was the sound of his knees hitting the hard ground. The elder's face turned pale in an instant. Large beads of sweat formed on his forehead and dripped down his cheeks. He was shocked. Looking at the woman in green before him, his eyes were filled with despair. The people before him were either crippled of their cultivation or severely injured. As for him, he would not be able to escape the fate of death. Thinking of this, he felt even more indignant. However, there was nothing he could do, because at this moment, he clearly knew that this woman's power was far above theirs. Their coercion had no effect on her. On the contrary, when she exerted her coercion, they did not even dare to breathe loudly. They were forced to kneel down. Fengjiu glanced at the elder on the ground indifferently. With a wave of her sleeve, she sent the guards who rushed forward flying. At the same time, she ordered, "Capture them." She looked indifferently at the leader of the Song family shadow guards. Yes. Almost instinctively, the captain of the Song family's hidden guards responded. After he responded, even he was stunned for a moment. He glanced at his mistress. Seeing that she did not respond, he quickly went forward and grabbed those guards. I'm not killing you. Firstly, I don't want to dirty this courtyard. Secondly, I want you to send a message back. Tell the Chung family head to personally bring gifts to apologize. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeve, and the person kneeling on the ground was sent flying. He fell next to the old man in the corner. The Song family did not even have a chance to speak. No, it should be said that they were stunned when the woman in green appeared. They did not know who she was. How dare she? How could she so easily leave them on the verge of death? They did not even have the strength to resist. Throw them out of the Song mansion. Madame Song ordered. Yes. The shadow guards responded. They quickly dragged them out of the Song mansion. She then ordered the maidservants to clean up the courtyard, cleaning up the smell of blood in the courtyard. The elders of the Song family, as well as the other members of the Song family and the shadow guards, were all stunned when they saw this scene. They had thought that this would be a tough battle and that they might need help. However, who knew that they would suddenly feel like they were just there to be bystanders? They were not of any use at all. In the darkness of the night, the Chung family guards who were thrown out supported the few people who were on the verge of death. The Song family shadow guards even sent 1 or 2 people to keep an eye on them. In the main courtyard, Fengjiu looked at Madame Song and said, now that they have been chased out, there shouldn't be any problems in the short term. Find someone to check on that woman in the room. I'll leave the rest. I'll leave the rest to you. I'll go back and rest. She waved her hand. How? Now that the elders of the Chung family have their cultivations crippled, and the ones who are seriously injured are also seriously injured. She even asked the Chung family to come and apologize. Is that possible? The way I see it, our Song family is in big trouble this time. Chapter 50:16. When Madame Song saw this, she said, what's done is done. There's no point in saying anything more. I'll send a message for Lingbo and the others to come back first. Let's go take a look at that woman in the guest house. As she spoke, she led a few people to the guest house. The next day, Madame Song only arrived at Fengjiu's courtyard to wait for her when it was close to noon. She had many things to ask her and could not sleep, so she came here to wait for her to wake up. When Fengjiu finished washing up and walked out of her room, she saw her sitting there. She walked over and said, Good morning, Madame Xinyuan. I have some things to ask you, so I came early. After Madame Xinyuan sat down, she asked, Madame Xinyuan, the people from the Song family left just like that. I think it's impossible for them to come and apologize. Not only that, they might even be angered and attack the Song family. What do you think? Before this matter is resolved, I won't leave. Don't worry. She smiled and took a sip of the tea in front of her. She smiled and said, Didn't Mir mention my identity to you? Madame Song was slightly taken aback when she heard this, but she shook her head. Mir didn't say anything. She only said that you were a very important friend of hers and asked me to treat you well. Listening to her words, could it be that she had some kind of shocking identity? She thought about the 3 children that Mir brought back this time. Those 3 children said that they were the Qing Emperor's disciples, and she was familiar with them. Could it be that Madame Xinyuan was acquainted with the Qing Emperor? At that moment, a few thoughts flashed through her mind, and she vaguely had some guesses. If she was an acquaintance of the Qing Emperor, and the kind that was close, it would explain why she looked down on a large family like the Chung family, and why she had the ability to cripple the elders of the Chung family. When she thought of this, she calmed down. She said, "Oh right, I went to the guest house last night. That girl was a young miss from a small family. But because of her beauty, Chung Wanli took a liking to her. Chung Wanli killed her entire family, leaving only her alive. He took her away." Speaking of this matter, she sighed softly and said, "That girl is also a pitiful person. Her body is also covered with large and small injuries. But according to her, because her injuries have not yet healed, Chung Wanli did not touch her. Until now, she is still a pure and innocent girl. When I came over, I told the servants to have her dress up. Later, She will come over and say that she wants to thank you in person. Madame Song paused, then continued speaking. And I sent a message to Lingbo and his sons to ask them to come back early. Feng Zhu nodded. Okay, I understand. As Madam Xin Yuan, Miss Ku wishes to see you. Madame Song glanced at Feng Zhu, then said to the outside, let her in. Not long after, a woman in a plain white dress walked in from outside. When she entered, she glanced at the two of them, especially the woman in green with an ordinary appearance. Her gaze lingered on them for a while before she bowed to the two of them. Chapter 50:17. Feng Zhu glanced at her and saw that after resting for a night, this woman's mental state was much better than last night. She was dressed in a plain white robe, and there was only a small white flower in her hair. Her extremely beautiful face was accentuated by the sadness and worry between her brows. Coupled with her slightly pale complexion and her slender waist, one had to admit that this was a beauty that would make any man feel pity for her. It was no wonder that a lecherous person like Cheng Wanli would exterminate her entire family for such a woman. It could only be said that beauty was a source of calamity. Sometimes, it was not necessarily a good thing for a woman to be born with a beautiful face. If a woman was born with a beautiful face but did not have powerful strength, not only would she bring disaster to herself, she would even implicate her family. She herself was a peerless beauty, and her appearance had brought her many troubles. However, she had resolved them all. As for the woman in front of her, she had such a beautiful face, but did not have powerful backing or strength. It was not strange that she would be targeted by a lecherous person. How did you get targeted by Cheng Wanli? Feng Zhu gently scraped the tea as he asked casually. He did not allow her to get up and allowed her to continue kneeling. It was because one day, when I went out, I was stopped by him. However, I did not expect that he would dare to enter my home at night and take advantage of the darkness to slaughter my entire family of over 100 people. When Meng spoke of this, her eyes were filled with hatred. However, when she thought of what Madame Song had said last night, she took a deep breath and suppressed the hatred in her heart. I thought that I would not be able to escape from his evil hands, but I did not expect that Madame would save me. Madame's great kindness. Meng has no way of repaying her. I can only. Before she could finish, she was interrupted by Feng Zhu. That's enough. Feng Zhu placed the lid back on the teacup and looked at the kneeling Meng, saying, you may leave. Meng was slightly startled. She couldn't help but raise her head to look at her. She quickly lowered her head and responded, yes, Meng will take her leave. As she spoke, she stood up, bent her knees, and bowed to them before leaving. Madame Song had been quietly watching from the side. When she saw that Madame Xin Yuan had chased her out, she smiled and said, Madame Xin Yuan, do you not like her? Feng Zhu smiled and looked at her. She's just a stranger to me. There's nothing to like or dislike about. She paused for a moment before asking, how does Madame Song plan to arrange her? When Madame Song heard her words, a gentle smile appeared on her face. She said softly, she's still injured. Once she recovers, let her leave. That's good. Feng Zhu nodded. She was satisfied with Madame Song's arrangement. Furthermore, the fact that she was able to make such an arrangement showed that she was a thoughtful person. In the Song manor, Song Lingbo was in the prime of his life, and his 3 sons were all adults. It was not a wise decision to keep such a beautiful woman in the manor. Letting her leave was the best arrangement. Meanwhile, Meng, who had returned to the guest courtyard, sat in front of the mirror in her room and stared blankly. She was no longer a rich young lady. Her entire family had been wiped out. She was now a homeless and lonely woman. Moreover, she was an extremely beautiful woman. Chapter 50:18. Could this be considered her family's revenge? Then where should she go from here on out? With such a face, she was afraid that she would be targeted by lecherous men if she walked out. She lifted her hand and gently caressed her beautiful face. Her brows were slightly furrowed with a tinge of sorrow. She looked so lovely and moving. What should I do? She muttered softly. At the same time, Song Lingbo and the others in the forest were all overjoyed. They had found many good things in this area yesterday, and even hunted a few high-level ferocious beasts. They had been busy the whole night and were only able to sit down and rest now that they were done. "Father, something happened at home. Mother wants us to go back quickly." The second son of the Song family put the ingredients he had picked into his spatial ring. Only then did he notice the message from the communication jade and immediately reported it to his father. "We also received the message from Mother. She wants us to go back quickly," the third and eldest sons of the Song family said together. Song Lingbo's heart sank after hearing their words. He asked, "Did your mother say what happened?" As he spoke, he took out his communication jade from his spatial ring to listen. "She didn't say in detail. She just wants us to go back quickly." The few of them shook their heads. Song Lingbo listened to the message on the communication jade. It was indeed as they said. He immediately shouted to everyone, "Get ready and return to the city quickly." Song Mi Har, and the other two had just come back for washing their faces. They heard their conversation before they even got close. They looked at each other and quickly ran over. "Father, did Mother say what happened?" Song Mir asked. "She only said that something happened at home. I'm afraid it's not a small matter. Otherwise, your mother wouldn't have sent us a message." Song Lingbo frowned. He was worried about the situation at home, so he ordered everyone to get ready quickly. He didn't have time to rest and was about to return to the city. Song Mi hurriedly took out her communication jade from her space ring. Unlike her three brothers and father, her communication jade said that something had happened at home. However, her friend, Madame Xinyuan, had helped out. She even asked about Madame Xuanyuan's background. "Madame Xinyuan? That friend you're talking about?" Song Lingbo asked Song Mi, after hearing the message on the communication jade. "Oh yes, that's her." Mi was stunned for a moment before she nodded and said, "Father, brother, don't worry. With Madame Xinyuan in our family, nothing will happen to our family. Her master was very powerful. With her as a guest in her house, even if something really happened, she wouldn't sit idly by." Song Lingbo frowned and asked, "Who is that Madame Xinyuan? How do you know that nothing will happen with her around? Where did she come from? How could he be so capable?" Even the elders of the Song family couldn't handle it, but she did. "Hee, father, this Madame Xinyuan is amazing," she said mysteriously, then smiled and said, "But since she's here, and we've gained a lot during this time, let's go home. But don't worry, everything will be fine." "How?" And the other two nodded at the side, expressing their agreement. With their mother around, who would dare to cause trouble for the Song family? Wasn't he tired of living? Chapter 50:19. "Yes," the elite guards replied in a low voice. "The three of you will ride on one sword. One of you will focus on flying on the sword, while the other two will prepare for battle. Ihong, you will protect me, and the three children in the middle. I will lead the way. The elite guards will protect the surroundings with their swords. Don't get caught up in battle. Our main goal is to get out of the forest. Do you all understand?" Song Lingbo shouted in a low voice. His voice was sonorous and powerful. In an instant, it stirred up the spirits of the elite guards. They were all prepared for battle. "Understood." The crowd responded immediately. They quickly arranged themselves into a formation and followed him on their swords. They flew directly from the dense forest, past the towering trees, and flew directly into the air. Although and the other two wanted to say that they could also fight and did not need their protection, they did not say anything when they saw the serious expressions of the Song family members. Knowing that something had happened at home, they were probably anxious to return home. However, the more anxious they were, the more likely something would happen. And the other two followed the three brothers of the Song family separately. They were surrounded by elite guards, and Song Lingbo was leading the way. After flying for a distance, there was no problem. However, not long after, they heard a shrill sound from the sky. "It's the spirit eater birds. Everyone, be careful." An elite guard shouted and instantly tensed up. Looked back and saw a flock of spirit eater birds flapping their wings and shrieking as they flew towards them. There were so many of them that they looked like a black mass. Song Lingbo also saw the flock of spirit eater birds. When he saw that there were so many of them, his heart sank. The sword in his hand turned, and his spiritual power surged. Suddenly, he raised his chi and heavily slashed towards the flock of spirit-eater birds. Huh! With a low shout, the aura of the sword was also released. The spiritual power and the aura of the sword converged to form a huge sword that was visible to the naked eye. With a whistling sound, it slashed towards the flock of spirit-eater birds. Whoosh! The moment the aura of the sword was released, the flock of spirit-eater birds were also scattered. Most of them flew to the left and right to avoid the attack. Only a few could not dodge in time and were chopped to death. With a shriek, they fell into the forest. Poo-pee-oo-pee-oo. The flock of spirit-devouring birds was getting closer and closer, and the sound of their wings flapping became clearer and clearer as they flew closer. Because of the split of the saber, the flock of spirit-devouring birds rushed forward again, surrounding them from all directions. Using their huge claws and beaks, they attacked and tore at them. Huh! You're courting death. The elite guards shouted, and the swords in their hands struck out at this moment towards those spirit-devouring birds that were flying towards them. Because how and the others were protected in the middle, even if the spirit-devouring birds approached and attacked, they were unable to directly attack the few people in the middle. Hiss! Chaotic screeches could be heard, and bird feathers could be faintly seen falling down. The three Song brothers and me, protected how and the other two. However, when they saw that they were unable to attack from their surroundings, some of them knew how to fly to a high place and dive down from above. Kill! Song Lingbo shouted and flew into the air. With a horizontal slash of his saber, he sent a spirit-devouring bird flying. The sharp saber in his hand turned again, and he slashed towards the surrounding spirit-devouring birds. Even though they weren't weak and their fighting strength was strong, many of them were injured under such a dense barrage of attacks. Scratches of various sizes could be seen on their bodies. Some looked like they were scratched by the claws of the birds, while others looked like they were bitten by the beaks of the birds. Chapter 50-20. However, Song Lingbo's strength was indeed very strong. In addition, the strength of the elite guards he brought along this time were first class. Although they were injured, it was not fatal. After a fierce battle, those spirit-devouring birds did not continue to pester them, and they continued to move forward with injuries. The next day, when the city gate opened, they went to Song family. Because it was still early, there were not many people on the street. Although this was the case, when they saw the group of people coming back with injuries and looking travel-worn, they were still surprised for a long time. How and Mu Chun followed the group of people, and Yu was sleeping on Mi's back. Knocking on the door, Song Lingbo walked in with large strides and said to the people behind him, "Elite guards, go and rest first. Yihong, you three also go and wash up before coming back. Treat the injuries on your body a little so that your mother won't worry. Mi, take the three children back to the courtyard to sleep." Okay, everyone responded and watched him walk in with large strides, then left. When Song Lingbo returned to the main courtyard, Madame Song had not yet woken up. When the door was gently pushed open, Song Lingbo walked in with light steps. As he entered the room, a cold wind blew in. Madame Song on the bed was startled and instantly opened her eyes and sat up. Ever since that night, she could not sleep well at night because she was always worried that someone would break in. "Madam, it's me," Song Lingbo said and strode to the side of the bed. Hearing the familiar voice, Madame Song's worried heart relaxed. She opened the bed curtain and looked at the person who came. Seeing him like that, she couldn't help but be startled. She hurriedly got up and asked, "Why is there so much blood? Where are you hurt?" Her hands grabbed his arm and looked up and down, but she couldn't see where the wound was. "It's nothing, it's not my blood. It's the blood of some fierce beasts. We came back in a hurry and didn't have time to change clothes and clean up." He hurriedly comforted. That's good. That's right. How are Yihong and the others? And the three children? Are they all okay?" She asked again. "They're all fine. Don't worry. It's just that the elite guards suffered some injuries, but they're not fatal. We just came back. I'll let Yihong and the others wash up first before coming back. I'll let me take the three children to rest in the courtyard," Song Lingbo said as he led her to the table and sat down. He asked, "Madam, what happened at home? Are you frightened?" Just now, when he entered the room, he had clearly lightened his footsteps. If it was in the past, she would not have been startled awake in that instant. But just now, she was suddenly startled awake. Madame Song continued, "You don't know this, but a man named Chung Wanli came with his entourage and 4 elders. He said that he was an old friend of yours and wanted to visit you. He beat up the gatekeeper as soon as he arrived. The elders stepped in and said that the Chung family was a big family in Longnan. Since they were old friends with you, it would be unreasonable for us to refuse them." Chapter 5021. Damn it! Song Lingbo was enraged. He slammed his fist on the table with a loud bang. Even the teacups on the table made a crisp sound. Madame Song held his hand and whispered, "Don't be angry. Listen to me." He took a deep breath and held her hand. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he said, "Tell me." Fortunately, Madame Xinyuan appeared and saved me. If not for her, the consequences would have been unimaginable. She continued. She crippled Chung Wanli's cultivation and forced him to reveal his purpose for coming to our house. That was when I found out that he came for the Rainbow Spirit Stone. As for me, I was lustful. That night, she recounted the events of that night in detail. Finally, she said, "That's what happened. At that time, other than what Madame Xinyuan did, I really couldn't think of any better way. I was just worried that the Chung family would seek revenge, so I hurriedly sent a message to you to come back." Song Lingbo let out a deep breath when he heard that. He felt a wave of lingering fear and said, "Fortunately, you're fine, and fortunately, Madame Xinyuan is in our estate. Madam, come with me later. I want to personally greet Madame Xinyuan and thank her." "Okay, I'll get someone to prepare a bath for you first," Madame Song said as she stood up. She went to the bedside to get a coat and put it on. Then, she went to the door and gave an order. On the other side in the guest house, Mir was sending Hao and the other 2 back. She heard from the housekeeper that Madame Xinyuan lived in the courtyard where the 3 children were staying. When she arrived at the courtyard, she dismissed the servants and saw the 3 children running inside. Just as she was about to knock on the door, Hao paused and said in a low voice, "Why don't we bathe and change first before coming to see Mother? Let Mother sleep a little longer?" Mu Chun saw that it was still early and remembered that his mother liked to sleep in. He nodded in agreement. "Okay, let Mother sleep a little longer. Yes, yes. Let's change into clean and beautiful clothes before coming to see Mother." When you entered the residence, she woke up. Her little face still had sleepiness. At this time, hearing the words of her 2 elder brothers, she also expressed her approval. When Mi heard their conversation, she gave some instructions to the servant girl outside the courtyard. She then walked towards them and said softly, "Then I'll go back first. I'll come back later. I've already asked the servant girl to prepare hot water for your bath. If there's anything you need, just let the servant girl arrange it." "All right," the 3 of them replied. After watching her leave, they returned to their respective rooms. With Fengjiu's cultivation, how could she not know that the 3 people were whispering outside the door? Hearing their voices and knowing that they were back, she opened her eyes with a smile and yawned. Thinking that the 3 little guys had said that they wanted to take a bath and change clothes first, she was not in a hurry to get up. After lying on the bed for a while, she got up and washed up. After leaving the room, he instructed the maidservant to have the kitchen prepare some food. He raised his hand and set up a soundproof barrier in the courtyard. Then, he sat in the courtyard and waited for the 3 children to come out of the room. "Mother!" Mu Chun was the first to leave the room. As soon as he stepped out of the room, he saw his mother sitting by the stone table in the courtyard. He immediately ran towards her. Chapter 5022. After not seeing him for a period of time, seeing that he had grown a little taller, she couldn't help but smile. She picked him up and sat him on her lap. Looking at the little guy's blushing face, she couldn't help but laugh. "What's wrong? Mother is holding you and you're still shy?" She deliberately teased him and reached out her hand to gently tap his nose. "Mother, I'm a boy. I can't always let Mother hug me." He tried hard to keep a straight face, but that slightly upturned mouth couldn't conceal the joy in his heart. "It's okay. Even if you're a boy, you're also Mother's precious son. Mother can not only hug you, but also kiss you. Saying that, she kissed his little face. Seeing that her son's ears were red, she couldn't help but chuckle. Son, who do you take after to be so shy? She asked in amusement. Mu-chan blushed with a trace of embarrassment, but his eyes were full of joy. Thinking for a bit, he said, like father. Hearing this, Fengjiu laughed and nodded in agreement. Yes, like your father. Thinking of that year, your father was kissed by mother, and he was so excited that he fainted. Speaking of this matter, she couldn't help but laugh. Mother, mother. Two joyful voices came at the same time, and at the same time when the door opened, Hao and Yu trotted towards her. Mother, mother, I missed you so much. Yu was a girl, so she was the best at acting spoiled. She threw herself into her mother's embrace and rubbed against it. Mother, Hao acted like an elder brother and came to her side and called. Sit down. Tell mother, how have you been outside during this period of time? Fengjiu put Mu-chan down and let him sit down beside her. She also hinted Hao to sit down. Yu squeezed into her mother's embrace and sat on her lap, hugging her tightly with both hands. Regarding this, Fengjiu could only feel helpless. She lovingly smiled and reached out to touch her still somewhat wet hair, saying, Sit properly. Mother will help you dry your hair a bit. It's easy to get sick like this, you know? I heard mother talking with brother, so I hastily dried my hair and ran out. Yu said, and sat properly without moving. Fengjiu used her spiritual power to help her dry her hair, then helped her tie her hair again, then hugged her. When she hugged her soft daughter, she raised her eyebrows. Lowering her head to look, she said with a smile, did you gain weight again? Hugging her soft and fleshy body, her weight had also increased by a lot. Yu looked at her with a beaming smile, then somewhat bashfully buried her head in her mother's bosom, and said, Mother, the food cooked by big sister me, family is truly delicious. Moreover, her brothers will also cook delicious and beautiful things for us. And mother knows, so you have to raise yourself well. Yu knows. She hurriedly nodded. How? Did you have any harvest when you went out with Song family? Fengjiu looked at Hao sitting beside her and asked.